It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 651, Curvature Bubble. Then, where did the ball go? Bilin's confused voice came from behind. Lu Yongchang also frowned. Yes, where did the ball go? 0. Slow down the experimental process. Lu Yongchang directly ordered. The holographic projection screen changes accordingly. At 1,000,000 times slow down speed. The ball slowly moves forward. This is the result of the combined action of two opposing gravitational fields. When the strength of the two gravitational fields successfully increased to medium stellar strength, the small ball suddenly disappeared from the screen. Then, there was a violent shaking in the slow motion. Camera, play. Again and increase the slow playback speed to 10,000,000 times. Lu Yongchang said with an extremely serious expression. 10,000,000 times, 20,000,000 times, 100,000,000 times. No matter how Lu Yongchang increased the slow playback speed, the high-speed camera did not capture the disappearance of the ball. Warp, navigation, high-speed cameras cannot obtain the trajectory of superlight objects. Lu Yongchang took a long breath and said with relief, therefore, it is basically certain that the experimental object will directly enter the moment when the gravitational field intensity reaches a medium stellar intensity, the curvature navigation state. But where's the ball? Bilin asked in a low voice. Even if it enters the curvature navigation state, it shouldn't disappear. Lu Yongchang's eyes moved. He recalled the anomalies that occurred during the first experiment. 0. Are there any debris from the broken ball found in the experimental cabin? No. Ball fragments have been found. 0 responded quickly. Second screening is in progress. Correction. Unknown powdery object found. Discovery. Area near the experimental bulkhead. Substance. Type inspection is in progress. Electronic. Synthesized sounds, accompanied by sirens, sounded one after another in the laboratory. Powder, or was it found near the experimental bulkhead? Lu Yongchang stared at the holographic projection blankly, and an incredible guess came to his mind. Driven by the super strong space-time waves caused by two opposite gravitational fields, the space-time where the ball is located moves forward rapidly. The little ball is the passenger who takes the hitchhiker. It followed the moving space-time and successfully entered the curvature navigation state. But at that moment, the extremely powerful space-time tidal effect directly tore it apart. Compared with the last experiment, the space-time tidal effect this time was much greater. It was directly shattered, but the warp voyage has begun. The moving time and space carries the powder formed by the small ball and rushes straight forward. The next moment, they rushed out of the range of the gravitational field. The waves of space and time gradually subsided, and they broke away from the curvature navigation state. The small ball powder also slowly fell near the experimental bulkhead. The test is complete. The material composition is the same as the experimental ball. Link's report undoubtedly confirmed the guess in Lu Yongchang's mind. He directly raised his hand and pulled several data out of the holographic projection. After some simple calculations, he looked at the calculation results in front of him and took a deep breath. 1.01 times the speed of light. Fellow academicians, we have exceeded the speed of light. We made it. The words fell. After a few seconds of silence, the laboratory suddenly boiled. After a brief celebration, the laboratory returned to its original atmosphere of intense research. Everyone knows that they are still far away from real success. Although they successfully found the switch to warp navigation, that doesn't mean they have mastered warp navigation. The reason is simple, Professor. The calculation results are out. The moment it entered the curvature navigation state, the experimental ball was subjected to unimaginable space-time tides. Bilin raised his hand, slid a few times on the holographic projection, and called up a piece of data. Two opposite curvatures of space and time produced an extremely complex reaction at the intersection. Part of the space-time curvatures cancel each other out, and part of the space-time curvature superimpose each other. This causes the experimental ball to be subjected to an unprecedented space-time tidal effect. He swallowed lightly. As of now, no material in human civilization can withstand such a space-time tidal force effect, although he had expected it. Yongchang's heart suddenly sank when he heard these words. In other words, today's curvature navigation technology is a proper one-way ticket. It's not even a one-way ticket. It's more like stuffing a person or object into a cannon barrel and then firing it out. We need to smooth out the complex distortions in space and time around the aircraft. Yongchang looked at the curvature model in the holographic projection and muttered to himself. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand to sketch and calculate something in the curvature model. With the real-time calculation provided by Zero, a brand new curvature model was quickly presented to Yongchang. Professor, this is looking at the bubble-like object that appeared in the curvature model, which was narrow at both ends and fat in the middle. Bilin couldn't help but ask Yongchang a question. With real-time computing and control, we can impose a changing gravitational field on the space-time around the aircraft. Thus, the distorted space-time around the aircraft is smoothed out. According to the calculations from the model, this would be a bubble-shaped gravitational field similar to a rugby ball. We can call it curvature bubble. Once you enter the curvature navigation state, only the inside of the curvature bubble is a safe zone. Bilin nodded, not quite understanding. Professor, I understand what you mean, but can such calculations really be completed? Yongchang smiled gently. That's my job. With the help of the current space-time model and curvature model, I believe that a model that can accurately calculate the curvature of space-time can be obtained. He stood up from his seat and looked back thoughtfully at the crude model he had just completed. Perhaps this curvature bubble is the predecessor of the gravitational shield. After speaking, he turned and walked out of the laboratory, leaving a sentence. Continue the experiment, and all the data will be sent to my personal terminal. Chapter 652, Curvature Number 1. Earth. The door of Yongchang's office was closed. As usual, Yongchang locked himself in the office again. He needed to integrate the space-time model and curvature model he established, and use this to find the law of the mutual influence of space-time waves under the curvature navigation state. As long as the law of the generation of space-time waves is found, and the equation about space-time waves is solved, then human civilization can be said to have mastered the curvature navigation technology. The accurate prediction and calculation of space-time waves can help humans smooth the waves on the surface of the space-time ocean. Obviously, the difficulty of this work is not small. It can even be described as exaggerated. Not only human civilization, many fourth-level civilizations in the universe are stuck at this step. The space-time wave equation and the grand unified theory are the two biggest thresholds between the fourth-level civilization and the fifth-level civilization in the universe. At this time, although Yongchang, with his quantized brain, has a thinking ability far beyond that of ordinary individuals in the fourth-level civilization, it is difficult to solve the first threshold to enter the fifth level civilization in one fell swoop due to his own civilization level, or in other words, due to his own knowledge. Even he needs to constantly consider and try. Of course, a large amount of experimental data is needed to support it. It is for this reason that in the mobile laboratory of Kunpeng, 1 light year away, the antimatter engine continues to output tremendous energy at full power, and the vacuum experiment cabin is also constantly emitting explosions. That is the moment when the experimental subject enters the curvature navigation state. Because the material cannot withstand the tidal effect of space and time, and is shattered. Every experiment will generate a large amount of data. These data are continuously transmitted to Yongchang's office and presented one by one in front of Yongchang. Yongchang's office is therefore covered by layers of stacked holographic projections in the ocean of azure data. He was like an insignificant dust, quietly shrinking in a corner to perform his own calculations. Time passed by bit by bit. In front of him, a more complete space-time model gradually became clear, and a set of equations related to the development process of human civilization gradually surfaced. 3 months passed in a flash. The tightly closed office door finally opened slowly again. At the door, Fang Zhu's face was full of excitement and expectation. Through the slowly opening gap of the door, He vaguely saw the layers of dense azure holographic projections inside the room. Point on each holographic projection, bright white, like heavenly books. Data and formulas were presented. Point as the gap in the door gradually opened, these azure holographic projections gradually turned into light particles and dissipated in the air. When the door was completely opened, the slightly dim office finally only had a huge holographic image. Point on the projection, an intoxicating picture scroll was presented. Point spacetime, under the influence of the gravitational field, stirred up waves of rhythmic movement. Just like the wind blowing across the sea. Fang Zhu stared at the waves in the holographic projection in a daze. In his opinion, at this moment, the spacetime waves in the holographic projection seemed to be much more vivid, no longer as rigid as before. At the same time, there was an indescribable beauty in the process of spacetime movement. His eyes slowly turned to the other side, where there were dense formulas and equations under Zero's control. These equations also moved slightly with spacetime. Before he could observe carefully, a figure walked out from the depths of the room, attracting his attention, while blocking part of his sight. The figure gradually became clear, disheveled hair, withered face, but these could not cover up the bright and fiery light in his eyes. Fang Zhu swallowed lightly and asked in a hoarse voice, "Teacher, success, did it succeed?" Faced with Fang Zhu's inquiry, Yongchang slowly stopped his staggering steps, pulled the corners of his mouth, and showed a bright smile. "Of course," he responded softly. 1 year later, the first prototype of the curvature engine was successfully manufactured. Considering that the power of the prototype was still small, it was installed on a small starship modified based on the Zhuan fighter. Curvature number 1. This is the code name of this small starship. For safety reasons, the test flight site of Curvature number 1 is also not next to the fleet. It relies on the antimatter engine and slowly comes to the open area 0.1 light years away from the fleet. Originally, according to Fang Zhu's idea, the test site of Curvature number 1 should at least be placed in an area 1 light year away. But Yongchang believes that 0.1 light years is safe enough. Of course, the main reason is that it takes too long to send Curvature 1 to a light year away. After the curvature engine prototype was successfully launched, Yongchang didn't want to wait for a moment. Finally, after countless days and nights of thinking about it, the real curvature navigation experiment is about to begin. In the laboratory, Professor, according to the experimental plan, Curvature 1, carrying experimental animals such as mice and gorillas, will conduct a 10-minute curvature navigation. Bilin meticulously reported to Yongchang. During this period, the starship's navigation speed will reach 1.1 times the speed of light. On the preset route, the Academy of Sciences has deployed a total of 30 exploration starships to conduct a full-scale exploration of the navigation process. Do you have anything else to add? 1.1 times the speed of light. This is also the limit level that the first generation curvature engine can achieve. Of course, after increasing the power of the curvature engine, the navigation speed will also increase. However, the higher the navigation speed, the higher the requirement for the degree of curvature of space-time, and at the same time, the space-time waves will become more difficult to control. After careful calculations, Yongchang came to a conclusion. According to the energy level that humans can currently control, the maximum speed that a curvature spacecraft can reach should be around 10 times the speed of light. In other words, 10 times the speed of light should be the ceiling of a level 4 civilization. Due to the great differences in the paths and directions of civilization development in the universe, the technology trees of each civilization will also be quite different. There will also be a large gap in the degree of mastery of the curvature engine among different civilizations, and the navigation speed of starships will be even more different. Therefore, based on the calculation results, Yongchang divided the curvature navigation into a simple level. The basis for the division is naturally the degree of control over energy. First level curvature, the starship's navigation speed is between 1c 10c, which is the level of human civilization today. C refers to the speed of light. 10c is 10 times the speed of light. Second level curvature, 10c 100c. Third level curvature, 100c 1000c. Fourth level curvature, 1000 C 10,000 C point, and so on point according to his guess. The sweeper civilization and the pastoral civilization have a high probability of mastering the 4th level curvature technology, or even the more advanced 5th level curvature. Professor? Hebelin's voice interrupted his thoughts. He came back to his senses, and after a moment of silence, a look of satisfaction appeared on his face. The plan is very good. Let's proceed according to the plan you said. Okay. Hebelin nodded excitedly. Chapter 653 Curvature Communication 1.0 Program. The moment the order was issued, the experiment officially began. Under Zero's control, the antimatter engine inside curvature number 1 began to work at full power. The gravitational field generator is ready. The anti-gravitational field generator is ready. Curvature. Bubbles begin to form. The announcements rang out in the laboratory one after another at the same time. The peaceful space-time gradually became hideous, but at the core of the storm, it was calm. A small, constantly fluctuating gravitational field smoothed out all the wrinkles in space-time and constructed a small peaceful paradise point. And curvature number 1 is located right in the center of this paradise. Prepare to enter curvature navigation. Countdown. 5, 4, 3. Quote. Looking at the data flashing rapidly in the holographic projection, LV Yongchang clenched his fist slightly and subconsciously held his breath. As the countdown ended, curvature number 1 also disappeared from everyone's sight. The noise in the laboratory became more and more noisy, and almost every academician began to get busy. Quick! LV Yongchang shouted in a hurried tone. Zero. Confirm the working status of the quantum communication device. The moment curvature number 1 entered the curvature state, it meant that ordinary electromagnetic wave communication had failed. It left the electromagnetic wave behind. According to the situation near the black hole, the quantum long-distance communication device will also experience quantum decoherence under the action of a strong gravitational field point. If the long-distance communication device also fails completely, that means that every time the human fleet enters curvature navigation, the quantum long-distance communication module will be damaged in all directions. Thinking of this situation, LV Yongchang's face suddenly became ugly. Current entangled state quantum loss rate 1.72%. Communication connection status is normal. Information loss rate 1.72%. Curvature number 1 has successfully entered the curvature navigation state. Current navigation speed 1.1 C. The moment the electronic synthesized sound sounded, LV Yongchang suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, as the event form theory says, under the influence of gravity, quantum entangled pairs will have a probabilistic loss in the process of detecting macro black holes. LV Yongchang found that the probability of quantum entangled pairs being lost is directly related to the strength of gravity point when the gravitational intensity exceeds or threshold, that is, when the space-time curvature reaches the threshold. The entangled quantum state has a probability of decoherence point. The greater the gravitational intensity, the higher the space-time curvature, and the greater the probability of decoherence. Therefore, after careful calculation, LV Yongchang had a conjecture point when the curvature navigation speed is below 10 C. The quantum communication device will not completely lose its function. This means that at present human civilization can still use quantum super distance communication to communicate. However, the probabilistic loss of entangled quantum states means that the transmitted information will also have a probabilistic loss, but this can be compensated by regularly disrupting the order of information and transmitting information at a high frequency. Humans may be able to avoid the loss of information during transmission. Simply put, it is to arrange and combine a sentence through a specific algorithm and then send all these combinations out. In this process, information will be lost probabilistically. After the receiving end receives the information, it will restore the information through an algorithm. By comparing each missing piece of information, the complete information can be obtained. The second purpose of the curvature number 1 experiment is to verify the feasibility of this plan. Report. The number 1 exploration starship has detected curvature fluctuations. An academician reported excitedly. The state of space-time curvature is normal. Good. 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 LV Yongchang said with a flushed face. 0. Start the curvature communication 1.0 program and check the integrity of the transmitted information again. After a short wait, curvature communication 1.0 has been successfully started. The communication connection status is normal. Current information loss rate 0%. Before LV Yongchang could speak, there was an extremely warm applause behind him. 0.11 light minutes. Light minutes. The distance that light travels in 1 minute. The last exploration starship quietly stayed at the end of the runway point. It needs to collect relevant data when curvature number 1 exits the curvature state point. Time flies. 10 minutes are almost up, Professor. The 30th exploration starship has detected the fluctuation of space-time curvature. Billin's excited voice came from the side. The experiment was successful. We have successfully mastered the curvature navigation technology. Wait a little longer. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. It's not too late to celebrate. After curvature number 1 safely exits the curvature state. In the distance, a series of broadcasts sounded again. The gravitational field begins to weaken. The curvature bubble is working normally. Prepare to exit the curvature state. Countdown. 10, 9, 8. Quote. The bright red countdown jumped in the huge holographic projection, affecting the heartbeats of all the academicians present. At the moment when the countdown returned to 0, the broadcast sounded at the same time. Curvature number 1 has successfully exited the curvature state. Everything is normal on the ship. Before the academicians could smile, the piercing alarm filled the entire laboratory. The azure holographic projection instantly turned blood red. Warning: the signal of the 30th exploration starship is lost. Re-establishing the connection. Reconstruction failed. Correction: the 30th exploration starship has not been observed yet. Repeat: the 30th exploration starship has not been observed. Suspected of being attacked by an unknown person. The fleet has entered the first level of alert, accompanied by the flashing blood red warning lights. An extremely rapid electronic synthesized sound echoed in the earth. At the same time, the Golden Crow, which was in a silent state, began to move under the control of 0, circling the earth. Countless gun barrels began to slowly turn their direction, pointing to the test site 0.1 light years away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 654 Advanced Civilization, Abnormal Phenomenon. Everything is completed in just tens of seconds. It only took less than a minute. Under 0's control, the People's Alliance fleet completed the transition from semi-dormant state to first level alert state. Even most academicians in the laboratory have not yet shaken off the joy of successful curvature experiment. What is this called? We are in the laboratory, and you tell me that an alien civilization has invaded. 0. What's going on, Lu? Yongchang's expression changed drastically, and he asked loudly, why did you order the fleet to enter the first level alert state without authorization? Professor, the observation starship number 30 has been confirmed to have lost contact. A slightly stiff electronic synthesized voice responded. Based on the information currently returned by various detectors, it is basically certain that the observation starship number 30 has been attacked by an unknown attack. Lu Yongchang asked hurriedly, where is the source of the attack? Unknown. Attack method unknown. Lu Yongchang clenched his fists hard. This series of unknowns made him feel powerless from the bottom of his heart. Again, is it another move by higher civilization? Humanity's experience over the past few hundred years reminded him of this direction for the first time. Not only him, but almost all the academicians present looked ugly. 0. Show the scene of the number 30 detection starship being attacked. Lu Yongchang gave the order in a heavy tone. As the words fell, the picture in the holographic projection changed instantly. When the countdown ended, warp number 1 successfully escaped from the curvature state and appeared in the center of the camera point in the far corner of the screen. Half of the number 30 exploration starship is shown. 1 second, 2 seconds, when the time came to the third second. The surface of the number 30 exploration starship suddenly emitted a burst of extremely dazzling white light, as if it had been attacked by something. The white light quickly dimmed. But the number 30 exploration starship disappeared from the screen. The playback screen ends here. This strange scene shocked everyone in the laboratory. Evelyn, who was standing next to Yongchang, looked extremely solemn. He turned his head and whispered, "Professor, do you think he is a sweeper or a pastoralist?" Yongchang didn't speak. He had a straight face and stared at the holographic projection in front of him. Judging from the information currently available to the Academy of Sciences, a civilization that can quietly wipe out a small starship under the surveillance of countless detectors is probably not much different from paint in strength. Such a powerful advanced civilization, at least in human perception, should belong to one of the two factions. The sweepers or the pastoralists. Time passes bit by bit. In the holographic projection, curvature 1 stayed quietly in the empty and silent interstellar space. Inside warp number 1, mice, gorillas, and other experimental animals are all living peacefully in their own spaces as usual. They don't know that they are currently the only creatures in the entire human history that can exceed the speed of light. Of course, even if they knew, they wouldn't have much feelings about this historic moment. Drop. With a crisp sound, Zero began feeding food to the experimental creatures according to the preset program. Warp number 1 gradually became lively inside. It looks like, at least, our curvature experiment was successful. Warp 1 successfully entered and safely exited the warp voyage. During this period, the living organisms were not significantly damaged or affected. The quantum communication compensation plan has also been verified. Yongchang looked at the lively experimental animals and murmured in a low voice, "The price paid for all this is just a detection starship." Wait. His eyes moved slightly, as if he realized something. It's just a detection starship? Why didn't the advanced civilization that launched the attack directly destroy our warp speed 1? Or maybe it's because Fangzhu hesitated, and he said unconfidently, "Maybe it's to give us a warning." No, it doesn't look like that. Yongchang's originally heavy eyes suddenly became lively. He rubbed his hands vigorously and quickly organized his thoughts. Think about it. Since leaving the Earth until now, when has human civilization encountered such a kind civilization? Even the Nuf's civilization showed a lot of malice at the beginning. You mean? Fangzhu's eyes revealed a hint of expectation. Is it a problem with the experiment? Yes. Yongchang said decisively. It must be. During the curvature navigation, there should be some phenomenon that we haven't discovered yet. Zero. Continue to play back the scene of the detection starship being attacked. Laboratory. One point in the holographic projection, the scene of the disappearance of the detection starship was replayed over and over again. Hiss. Fangzhu gasped, raised his hand, and rubbed his sore temples vigorously. "Professor, do you see what's wrong? This is already." Fangzhu turned his head and glanced at the holographic projection on the side, confirmed it and said again, "This is the 798th replay." Wait. Yongchang raised his index finger and made a silent gesture, with a faint light shining in his eyes. "I can probably understand the reason behind it, Fangzhu." What the hell? Yongchang glanced at Fangzhu with some dissatisfaction. "Why are you so noisy? Can you calm down?" "No." Fangzhu swallowed his saliva and looked at Yongchang in shock. "You can understand the reason behind it just by looking at this thing. Are you sure you are not just guessing?" Yongchang pulled the corner of his mouth and showed a slightly sarcastic smile. "That's you. Sometimes you have to admit that there is a gap between the two of us." Fangzhu. Chapter 655 Superluminal Particle Storm. "So, what amazing discovery did you make, Fangzhu's eyes twitched repeatedly, and he asked Yongchang word by word. Yongchang chuckled and stretched out his hand to drag across a holographic image. With a few strokes, he sketched a simple space-time model on it. "Everyone, we have overlooked an important issue. When the curvature engine has started. Under the action of the two opposite gravitational fields in front and behind, a large number of particles will be sucked into the gravitational field in front of the starship. As he said this, LV Yongchang's index finger firmly tapped an area in the projection. Eventually, these particles will converge in front of the curvature bubble. As the curvature navigation time increases, the number of particles will continue to accumulate. At the same time, during the curvature navigation process, the energy they contain will continue to accumulate. Wait. Hebelin frowned and interrupted Lu Yongchang's words. Where does their energy come from? The curvature engine. Yes. Lu Yongchang nodded to confirm Hebelin's words. Just now I checked the energy consumption of curvature number 1 after entering the curvature state and found that it was slightly higher than I expected. At first I thought it was an error. Now, it seems that this is not an error, but these particles are playing tricks. This is equivalent to the additional resistance that the curvature bubble needs to overcome when moving forward. Bilin nodded thoughtfully. I roughly understand. When the starship exits the curvature navigation state, since the mass and size of the particles are much lower than the starship, they can still maintain the curvature navigation state for a short period of time. At this time, since the particles are still in the curvature navigation state, ordinary observation instruments cannot observe them. Moreover, they contain a lot of energy. Once they encounter an object that blocks their progress, they will. Bilin opened his palm suddenly. Bang. In our opinion, it's like being attacked by some mysterious thing. But, Professor, how can this be verified? LV Yongchang smiled and pointed to the huge holographic projection in front of him. Calculated from the time curvature number 1 exited the curvature navigation state to the time the starship was attacked, the interval between the two was 3.13 seconds. Combined with the distance between the two, it just happens to be the speed of the attacking object. 1.1 c. Hearing this, Hebelin hurriedly lowered his head to check it. It really is. Looking at the result in the holographic projection, he whispered with some surprise. LV Yongchang laughed. So, before we conduct curvature navigation, we need to ensure the safety of the route. Once any macroscopic obstacles appear on the route, the consequences may be catastrophic. Fang Zhu on the side also added, that is to say, in planetary systems with relatively rich interstellar matter, curvature navigation is strictly prohibited. Of course, LV Yongchang thought for a moment. Not only in the star system, even between star systems, we need to be more careful. After all, we currently do not have the corresponding superluminal observation means. Professor, in the distance, Tao Yuda's voice came. I have an idea. Do you think this feature of the curvature engine can be used to make weapons? LV Yongchang was silent for a while, nodded, and shook his head. Yes, but it seems it doesn't have much effect. Before attacking, it needs to accelerate over a long distance to accumulate energy. In actual combat, it is more efficient to use the curvature engine to project antimatter bombs, weapons, against low-level civilizations. Tao Yuda said softly, if we want to absorb the other party as a subordinate civilization, the curvature engine should be a good weapon. Professor, think about our initial reaction. At that time, the latter civilization did not use such means against us. Tao Yuda shrugged. Of course, the sailing distance of their flagship is not enough to trigger this effect. But, if, Professor, what do you think will happen? At least, the morale within the civilization will become a huge problem. LV Yongchang's face changed slightly. After a moment of silence, he nodded. In this case, this research task will be handed over to you. Then, he turned and looked at the old man with grey hair standing not far away. Academician Ko Liang K, you will be responsible for the transformation of the existing starship. After leaving the laboratory, LV Yongchang boarded the robot with the help of the robotic arm that had been waiting at the door. The robot took him and drove quickly towards LV Yongchang's office. The back. Bilin looked at the robot's back with envy. Zhao. Where is the robot you applied for? Fang Zhu asked in surprise as he walked out of the laboratory door. Academician Fang, my application was not approved. Bilin looked at Fang Zhu with a complicated expression as he boarded the back of another robot. Oh, sorry, I forgot, Fang. Zhu smiled and raised his eyebrows at Bilin. Come on, come up with a few more big projects, and I will approve your application. Bilin. After returning to the office, Yongchang quickly sat down at his seat. Close the door. As the words fell, his consciousness had sunk deep into his mind. Technology tree space point in the mottled background. The technology tree outlined by the bright white lines was particularly bright. Looking at the extremely bright cursor, Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. The curvature navigation technology passed the verification of the technology tree. The bright white lines flowed out of the cursor and stretched upward along the dim passage. Primary gravitational shield. Grand unified theory. These are the last two technologies for a level 4 civilization. To enter a level 5 civilization. Looking at the fog at the top of the technology tree, Yongchang calmed down and focused his attention on one of the dim cursors. PS. More updates tomorrow morning. Chapter 656. Gravitational shield principle. Grand unified theory. In the universe, at least in the universe currently known by human civilization, there are only 4 forces between microscopic particles: gravity, electromagnetic force, strong interaction force and weak interaction force. From leaving the Earth to developing to the 4th level civilization, the Academy of Sciences has only unified 3 of these forces. Gravity, because gravitons have not been discovered, has always been outside the theoretical system of human civilization. Today, gravitons have been controlled by the Academy of Sciences, and the Grand Unified Theory has also reached the most critical step. In the technology tree system, the half-dim and half-bright cursor also confirms this. Only one step away, the Grand Unified Theory can be presented to everyone. Cross-level analysis of key technologies is an extremely dangerous behavior. In the past, Yongchang would never dare to take this risk. But now, after the brain is quantized, with his thinking ability greatly improved, he decided to take a risk. The human fleet has little time left. Under the guidance of the technology tree, Yongchang's brain entered the overclocking state again. Endless inspiration surged from the depths of his mind. Accompanying it was a dizziness that he had not experienced for a long time. He endured the dizziness and quickly sorted out and integrated all the known information. A mathematical model emerged in his mind bit by bit. While Yongchang was working hard to conquer the Grand Unified Model, Bilin returned to the laboratory again after a short rest. According to Yongchang's arrangement, he needed to lead the team to conquer the gravitational shield technology. Curvature. Bubble. Bilin frowned slightly, looking at the space-time model left by Yongchang in the holographic projection, and muttered to himself, is this thing really the predecessor of the gravitational shield? The function of the curvature bubble is very simple. It can use the fluctuating gravitational field to smooth out the wrinkled space-time point, but the function of the gravitational shield is not like this. Or, it is just the opposite. Only the distorted space-time caused by a strong gravitational field can effectively resist external attacks, but this poses a problem. It is very simple to generate a strong gravitational field to deflect external attacks, but if you want to turn it into an eggshell to protect the starship inside and keep it from being affected by anything, this is very difficult. After all, generating a gravitational field around a starship will inevitably affect the starship itself. Bilin sat quietly in a chair, subconsciously imitating Yongchang's movements. When he was thinking, his finger joints gently tapped on the experimental table in front of him, making a crisp sound. In the holographic projection, the space-time fluctuations of curvature number 1 in the curvature navigation state were clearly presented in front of him. Surround the curvature bubble. Bilin's eyes were full of confusion, and he muttered to himself. As soon as he said this, he suddenly stopped tapping the table. Yes, that's it. With excitement flashing in his eyes, he quickly opened a holographic projection and raised his hand to operate it. With the help of the gravitational field generating device, several powerful gravitational fields are generated around the starship. Bilin stood in front of everyone and gently tapped the screen in the holographic projection with his fingers. The function of these gravitational fields is to deflect external attacks. What about The starship itself. An academician interrupted Hebelin's words. These gravitational fields will not only affect the navigation status of the starship itself, but also affect the accuracy and power of our attacks. Hebelin chuckled, turned off the holographic projection screen, and then pointed to the space-time model that was still running in the distance. Professor Liu has told us the answer. Curvature bubble, similar to the working principle of the curvature bubble of curvature navigation. We can use the anti-gravitational field to smooth out the space-time fluctuations around the starship. I roughly understand what you mean. It is equivalent to generating countless small gravitational fields around the curvature bubble? The academician who spoke earlier asked with his eyes brightened. Yes. Hebelin nodded. We can also imitate the principle of magnetic field shield and make it fluctuate according to a specific algorithm. This can greatly reduce the probability of the enemy breaking the gravitational shield. At the same time, with the help of Zero's computing power, the small gravitational field generation area can be controlled in real time to implement point-to-point defense for each attack. The voice fell. The laboratory regained its calm again. But soon, this calm was broken by warm applause. With theoretical support and Zero's terrifying work efficiency, the first gravitational shield test began soon. A modified small starship slowly left the Human Alliance starship factory and flew towards the empty universe in the distance. Golden Crow battleship followed it silently. Start the gravitational shield. Billen gave the order with a serious look. The power of the antimatter engine began to increase continuously, and several gravitational field generating devices installed inside the small starship began to operate. As small gravitational fields were constantly generated around the starship, a slightly larger anti-gravitational field was also slowly increasing around the starship. With the help of a high-precision optical telescope, it can be clearly seen that as the power of the gravitational field continued to increase, the light passing through the small starship gradually became distorted. The gravitational shield has been successfully generated. The current state is stable. The load is 3.73%, and the attack test can be started at any time. The report came from not far away. Ready. Before Hebelin finished speaking, the door of the number 1 laboratory suddenly opened. Success. I succeeded. LV. Yongchang's ecstatic voice came from outside the door. PS. More updates. 5/11. Dear readers, please give me free gifts for love. Chapter 657. A belated return gift. LV. Yongchang's shout made Hebelin's body tremble violently. Successful. He dropped the work in his hands and turned to the door of the laboratory. Professor, please tell me clearly, what is successful? Billen's voice trembled slightly, and he asked LV. Yongchang, who was walking towards him eagerly. As a core member of the Academy of Sciences, Billen naturally knew what LV. Yongchang had been doing some time ago. Therefore, the moment he heard LV. Yongchang's words, a faint guess emerged in his mind. Grand unified theory. He couldn't believe his guess. How much time has passed? The test machine of the gravitational shield has not been successfully operated yet, and Professor Liu has taken down this crown of physics alone. Grand unification. Hebelin swallowed hard and cast his expectant eyes on LV. Yongchang in front of him. LV. Yongchang smiled gently and nodded, and raised his hand to pat Hebelin's shoulder. Yes, you guessed right. I have figured out the grand unified theory. The moment he heard this understated statement, Hebelin felt his breath suddenly choked. Then came a feeling of ecstasy and excitement that came from nowhere. How did you integrate gravity with the other 3 forces? Hebelin exclaimed. It's hard to imagine that you can complete this complex theory in such a short time. You are really too. His face flushed slightly, and after holding it in for a long time, he finally came up with the simplest and most plain words. Too awesome. The laboratory was briefly silent for a few seconds, and then a burst of laughter broke out. Hebelin scratched his head awkwardly, quickly made way, and extended his hand to invite him in. Professor, please come in. Just in time. The first test of the gravitational shield has begun. According to your instructions, this gravitational shield is developed based on the curvature bubble technology. LV. Yongchang smiled and waved his hand. I didn't instruct you. This is your credit. No one can take it away. As he spoke, He took a step and strode into the laboratory. Attention. All units, the first live fire test of the gravitational shield begins now. Billin's excited voice came from behind point looking at the Golden Crow battleship in the holographic projection, whose muzzle began to shine. Yongchang felt a little bit of emotion in his heart. Thoughts then returned to more than 10 minutes ago, in the office. Yongchang's eyes flashed with an extremely strong excitement. He reached out to untie the electromagnetic adsorption device on the seat, and whispered a complaint. Wait, once I have figured out the grand unified theory, I will tear you apart sooner or later. As he spoke, he stood up and walked to the locker beside him. He gently opened the top door of the locker and carefully took out a black box from it. The box was not big, just slightly bigger than the palm of your hand. He gently brushed off the scattered dust on the black box and quickly returned to his desk. Click. The sound of the electromagnetic adsorption device sounded again. Yongchang took a deep breath and solemnly pressed a switch on the side of the black box. The sound of airflow followed. When the sound of airflow disappeared, he rubbed his hands and gently opened the lid of the box. A fountain pen with obvious signs of wear and tear appeared in front of him. Looking at the fountain pen, Yongchang's eyes suddenly showed a strong sense of nostalgia. This was a gift from Yongchang to him in the Earth era. It was the eve of the helium flash crisis. He almost exhausted all his energy to lead humans to escape from the Earth and the solar system. Naturally, he didn't care about this gift at the time, nor did he care about the date of the gift. He just treated it as an ordinary gift. Until later, when human civilization successfully left the solar system and was able to take a short breath. Zero woke up him. Professor, according to the humanities information I have, you should return the gift to Professor Yongchang. At that time, Zero said. Return the gift? Why return the gift? Does this gift have any special meaning? Yongchang, who was lying in the hibernation cabin, asked Zero in confusion. Accompanied by a slight pain, the hibernation hormone was injected into Yongchang's body, and Zero's voice sounded. You received the gift on February 14th of the Earth calendar. Yongchang suddenly realized. But the effect of the hibernation hormone has already appeared. He slowly closed his eyes, and his consciousness gradually stagnated. After entering space, because there is no gravity, traditional pens can no longer be used normally. For this purpose, he specially added an electromagnetic micropump to the pen. But the service life of the pen is limited after all. Seeing that the pen was wearing out more and more seriously, and paper was a scarce resource in space, he had to seal it in a vacuum box. Today. This pen, that spanned thousands of years, was taken out again. Yongchang carefully took the pen out of the box and pulled out a stack of precious paper from the side. He spread it flat on the table and pressed it flat with an electromagnetic ruler. Swish, swish. Writing in space is not an easy task, but he still struggles to keep his handwriting neat. Accompanied by the rustling sound of the pen rubbing against the paper, neat lines of formulas appear on the paper. At the same time, under the real-time capture of the camera, the same content is also presented synchronously in the holographic projection. Zero's idle computing power is mobilized in large quantities to this office point in the universe. The theories and formulas that every fourth level civilization dreams of are slowly taking shape on this light paper. Click. The tip of the pen gently taps on the paper, leaving a small black dot. Finished. Yongchang took a deep breath and whispered softly, human civilization has become a fifth level civilization at this moment. The moment he said this, his eyes were filled with sourness. Thousands of years of hard work have finally paid off. Weak humans can finally make their own voices to the universe today. He was silent for a moment. After turning his head to look at the date, he waved the pen again and left a sentence at the end. On February 14th, 3276 in the Earth calendar. Yongchang gave Yongchang a gift in return. He carefully closed the pen and put it back into the black box. With a sound of airflow, the inside of the black box was evacuated again. After putting the box back in place, Yongchang reached out to move the electromagnetic ruler and picked up the thick manuscript paper. Zero, help me send this manuscript to academician Yongchang. Tell her for me, this is my return gift. I've kept her waiting for a long time. Chapter 658 Level 5 Civilization. Received. A slightly stiff electronic synthesized voice sounded, and the mechanical arm robot slowly stepped forward and stretched out its hand to take the manuscript wrapped in the envelope. Point. Whether in the future or now, this manuscript will be a priceless manuscript in the universe. Point. Watching the mechanical arm robot leave the office, LV Yongchang leaned back on the chair and sighed deeply to relieve his fatigue during this period. Professor Academician, his research on gravitational shield has made a breakthrough. At present, preparations for the experiment are underway. LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows, sat up straight and laughed. Hebelin is really impressive. He conquered the gravitational shield so quickly. As he said, he adjusted his sitting position to a comfortable position. Show me the information. The holographic projection quickly unfolded. Point. The research data on the gravitational shield quickly appeared in front of LV Yongchang. Point. He reached out and touched his chin, quickly flipping through the information in the holographic projection. Generate countless small gravitational fields outside the curvature bubble. LV Yongchang smiled and nodded. It's a good plan. It also has considerable advantages in micromanagement. As he said, he quickly turned the data to the control program part. Sure enough, Lu Yongchang laughed. I was right about this guy. He changed the control program of the magnetic field shield and directly applied it. 0. When will the experiment start? There is still an hour. 0 responded quickly. Do you want to go to the scene to command? LV Yongchang pondered for a moment, shook his head and said, wait, close the office door, and don't let anyone disturb me. I'll think of something first. As he said, he closed his eyes. Consciousness quickly came to the technology tree space. Point. LV Yongchang frowned slightly. Point. Every time he saw the mottled background of the technology tree space, he would feel a sense of irritability for no reason. Point. I always feel that since the last upgrade, the technology tree system has hidden some important information in the background. Point. But looking at the colorful and mottled background, he really couldn't think of what information this thing could hide. Point. After thinking for a moment, he helplessly turned his attention to the white technology tree suspended in the air again. Point. The branches and leaves are lush, and the cursor is bright. Point. The technology tree of the 4th level civilization has been completely formed. A white line extends from the grand unified theory and rises directly to the fog above. Point. With a slight tremor, the fog gradually dissipates as before. The technology tree began to extend rapidly upward in a slight vibration. Point. The vibration gradually subsided. Point. The technology tree of the 5th level civilization also appeared in front of Lu Yongchang. Grand unified theory, as the ceiling theory of the 4th level civilization, has become the cornerstone of the 5th level civilization at this time, quietly staying at the lowest end of the technology tree. Point. The white line gradually extends upward, dispersing the thick fog bit by bit, revealing extremely dim cursors. 2nd generation gravitational field controlled technology, Starship adaptive artificial gravity technology. LV Yongchang's eyes showed some realization. Point. No wonder the Academy of Sciences encountered obstacles in its research on artificial gravity. Point. Judging from the guidance of the technology tree, the premise for realizing artificial gravity is the new gravitational field controlled technology under the guidance of the grand unified theory. Professor, he Bilen's voice came from the side, interrupting his memories. What's wrong? LV Yongchang came back to his senses and turned to look at Hebelin beside him. Professor, it succeeded. Hebelin's eyes were full of excitement. The first actual combat test of the gravitational shield was a complete success. The strength is several times higher than that of the magnetic field shield. At the same time, it can also block the attack of kinetic weapons to a certain extent. LV Yongchang hurriedly looked at the holographic projection in front of him. Point. In the projection screen, the small experimental starship stood still in the storm-like attack of the Golden Crow battleship. The current shield load is 53.9%. According to preliminary estimates, it will take 3 Golden Crow battleships to break through its defense. Bilen quickly explained. When combined with the magnetic field shield, our starship's defense can be greatly improved. Not bad. LV Yongchang looked at the rapidly flashing experimental data in front of him and nodded with satisfaction. When this is over, I'll go and tell Academician Fang. I'll ask him to approve your application. Billen was stunned. The next second, his smile brightened again. "Thank you, Professor Liu." After the celebration, Billen hesitated for a while and whispered, "Professor, what's wrong?" Yongchang looked at Billen in surprise. "Didn't you always want a mechanical arm robot to, travel? What, don't want it?" No. Billen's face changed instantly, and he shook his head quickly. "I mean, that grand unified theory, can it, LV?" Yongchang raised his head and scanned the circle point, looking at the eager eyes of the academicians in the laboratory. He burst into laughter. "Okay." He walked forward while laughing. "Then I will briefly explain the grand unified theory to you. Human Union Starship Factory, academician. KO, are you sure you need to reserve such a large renovation space, Lee?" Yongchang frowned slightly, looking at the renovation drawings and the holographic projection, and asked in a low voice, "This will greatly increase the burden on the Starship Factory. The most important thing is, we are already running out of supplies. If a renovation of this scale is carried out, the fleet may need to set sail immediately to find resources." Faced with the doubts of the younger generation, Ko Liang-ke did not get angry, but smiled and shook his head. "These are all necessary components. Have you seen the latest announcement, Lee?" Yongchang shook his head in confusion. "Gravity shield technology has been completely conquered. Curvature navigation technology has also achieved a breakthrough. The human fleet can leave this hellhole at any time. Do you think, before leaving, Professor Liu will apply these new technologies to the starship?" Speaking, Ko Liang-ke sighed softly. "After all, no one knows what kind of situation humans will encounter next. What if, Lee?" Yongchang's expression became serious. "Academician Ko, I understand." Ding dong. A crisp message prompt sounded. "Academician Ko Liang-ke, Professor Lee Yongchang, the Academy of Sciences has published the latest paper. Please check it as soon as possible. Paper. Publisher, Liu Yongchang." Ko Liang-ke was stunned, then turned his head and looked at Lee Yongchang beside him. Both of them saw the confusion and surprise in each other's eyes. "Grand unified theory," the two said in unison. "PS. Thanks to the great God certification of the 10th art boss." Chapter 659 Technological Explosion. May 18th. 3300 in the Earth calendar. It has been 24 years since we completed the grand unification theory and entered the 5th level civilization point. In the past 24 years, the Starship Factory has not stopped at all and has worked overtime to complete various transformation tasks under Zero's control point, as Ko Liang-ke said before. Heading to a new star system, in addition to having curvature navigation technology, the fleet also needs to have some technology that can protect itself. These include, but are not limited to, gravity shields and various weapons and equipment. There are not many supplies near the black hole that humans can use today, and the Forgotten Star is already the richest area nearby. Therefore, in just 24 years, after the complete death of Nus, various resources on the Forgotten Star were exploited to the maximum extent. Of course, the curvature experiments did not stop during the fleet transformation process after various animals and plants had successfully experienced warp navigation. The first manned warp navigation has also been declared a success. The successful establishment of the grand unified theory and the breakthrough of basic theories have once again brought human civilization into the era of technological explosion. In just 24 years, under the guidance of Liu Yongchang, the Academy of Sciences has made several major scientific research results. The successful breakthrough in gravitational field control technology has greatly enhanced the strength of the starship's gravitational shield. At the same time, magnetic field shield technology has also achieved further breakthroughs. Weapon systems are naturally no exception. The miniaturization of gravitational field generating devices has also made curvature weapons a reality. However, due to resource issues, not many of these powerful weapons were produced. Energy aspect. The introduction of gravitational field technology has increased the power of the antimatter engine several times under the combined influence of various factors. The maximum theoretical speed of the human fleet has also soared from 10c to 50c. However, due to various reasons, in most cases, the fleet's sailing speed will still be maintained within 10c. On the one hand, there are limitations of communication technology. When the curvature navigation speed reaches more than 10c, the probabilistic decoherence phenomenon of entangled state quantum will rapidly increase and exceed the threshold of information repair, not to mention electromagnetic wave communication. Electromagnetic waves propagating at the speed of light cannot even catch up with a starship entering a state of curvature. Once the sailing speed exceeds 10c, the fleet will be completely lost. On the other hand, there are issues of energy and materials. The higher the curvature, the greater the energy consumption to maintain the curvature. This is simply a fatal problem for today's human fleet. In addition to the above technologies, artificial gravity technology has also been successfully implemented in the laboratory. After learning the news, Yongchang hesitated for a while and reluctantly gave up the idea of applying it to all starships. The reason is simple. The scale of the renovation is too large and consumes too many materials. In a sense, the cost of fully transforming a starship even exceeds the cost of rebuilding a starship. Therefore, of the entire fleet, only some areas on the flagship, Earth, were equipped with artificial gravity facilities. The time has come, resources are severely insufficient, and many scientific research tasks in the laboratory have been suspended. Yongchang stood in the Earth Command Center, feeling the comfort brought by artificial gravity, and said in a deep voice, "The fleet transformation work is basically completed. Humanity needs to find new star systems." After saying that, he turned around and glanced around. Seeing no one objected, he asked Hebenin, who was sitting in the first row of seats, "Academician, has the selection of habitable star systems been completed?" Benin nodded and subconsciously reached out to touch the electromagnetic adsorption device on the side of the seat, but came up empty. He stood up awkwardly, walked quickly to Yongchang, and said loudly, "Currently, we already have mature planetary transformation technology, so I have relaxed the screening conditions for habitable planets." As he spoke, he moved a few times in the holographic projection beside him. A list of names and a star map were presented to everyone. Considering that the fleet's antimatter reserves are seriously insufficient, the fleet's first navigation target is the HIP 3376 star system located 13.7 light-years away. According to our observations, the HIP 3376 star system is a binary system composed of two red dwarf stars. Currently, no evidence of the existence of a planet has been observed. After the Dyson Cloud device is successfully deployed, the fleet will collect sufficient navigation energy within 50 years. The proposal to find a star system without planets to replenish energy actually came from Yongchang. Although human civilization has successfully promoted to level 5 civilization, and has even mastered a small part of the technology of level 5 civilization, the combat power of human civilization, in a sense, is not even as good as that of the level 4 civilization. Energy. The energy consumption of interstellar war is a terrifying value, whether it is a curvature engine or a gravitational shield. Any equipment involving a gravitational field generating device is a large energy consumer. Therefore, the remaining energy reserves of the human fleet today are simply impossible to support a vigorous interstellar war in star systems without planets. The probability of civilization being present is also greatly reduced. After all, in the young universe, energetic stars can be found everywhere, and the scarce ones are actually planets that are habitable and capable of long-term development. In addition, although the human fleet has undergone a small-scale transformation, these starships equipped with curvature engines are still satellite-class starships. To have a planetary starship of level 5 civilization, human civilization still needs some time to develop and work hard. What's next? Yongchang raised his eyebrows, as if he realized something. "I remember that a lot of Dyson clouds were newly built at the Starship factory some time ago. If they are all unfolded, I'm afraid that a lot of antimatter can be produced in 50 years. Where is the final destination of the voyage?" Kepler 452, Professor. Hebelin said in a calm tone. The distance from the HIP 3376 star system is 1539.2 light years. As soon as the voice fell, there was a commotion in the command center. 1539.2 light years. This is an extremely exaggerated distance point, at least for the previous human civilization. This was a long journey. That was enough to make people despair. Hebelin added softly. It only takes 154 years to travel at 10 times the speed of light, considering that supplies need to be replenished 2 or 3 times in the middle. It is conservatively estimated that the entire voyage will take about 300 years. 300 years. It only takes 300 years. Looking at the numbers in front of him, LV Yongchang's pupils trembled slightly. For the first time, he deeply experienced the transformation of human civilization. Kepler 452b. After a moment of silence, LV Yongchang asked back, you sure it exists in the Earth era? Kepler 452b is a planet full of magical meaning. This is the first potential super-Earth rocky planet discovered in human history. At the same time, various calculations show that this planet, like the Earth, is in the habitable zone of the star system. This brought endless imagination to humans thousands of years ago. But in the Earth era, due to the limitations of observation technology, humans have not been able to prove its existence, but only counted it as a candidate for an exoplanet. After the solar helium flash, although the observation technology of human civilization is constantly improving, the long distance of more than 1000 light years directly crushed the desire of the Academy of Sciences to carry out observations. It is better to consider how to avoid the crisis everywhere. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will deal with it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. Chapter 660 Target, Kepler 452. Confirmed. Bilin said firmly. According to the latest observation results, the Kepler 452 star system has a total of 6 planets. The general structure is similar to that of the solar system. Meanwhile, Kepler 452b was confirmed to be a rocky planet with a mass approximately 5 times that of Earth and a surface of approximately 2 g. The orbital period is approximately 385 Earth days. Also, located within the habitable zone of the star system, as suspected thousands of years ago, it is almost equivalent to the second Earth. Yongchang's heart beat violently for a few times, and a sense of anticipation that he had not felt for a long time suddenly arose. But Benin shrugged and said with regret, we found that there is a large amount of carbon dioxide in its atmosphere, which will cause a considerable greenhouse effect. Zeros. Simulation results show that there are relatively few water resources above Kepler 452b, and the maximum surface temperature may be above 120 degrees Celsius. The temperature difference between day and night is large, and the lowest temperature is about -50 degrees Celsius. In general, it is different from the imagination thousands of years ago. It is most likely a desolate planet. Yongchang laughed dumbly. This is not a big problem. Planet terraforming technology can quickly turn it into Earth 2.0. But I need to hear your reasons. Yongchang's face became a little more serious, and he said in a deep voice, why did you choose it? I just took a look at your list. Within 100 light years, there are 10 planets on your candidate list. Why did you choose such a distant planet? You should know that a long journey often means various variables. Looking at Yongchang's serious expression, Hebelin pondered for a moment, organized some words and then explained. The most critical reason is that it is closer to Sagittarius A*, the central black hole of the Milky Way. That means more supplies. It will also have many benefits for the future development of human civilization. But dense star systems will also give birth to more civilizations. Yongchang sighed in a low voice. This will bring more conflicts. In other words, more opportunities for cooperation. Hebelin interrupted Yongchang's words and corrected with a smile. Although the 5th level civilization is not a top existence in the galaxy, it is not someone who can be robbed randomly. Pinch, absorb subsidiary civilizations and build a civilized territory. Only in this way can human civilization survive better. There was silence in the command center. Yongchang frowned slightly and carefully considered the pros and cons. The benefits of affiliated civilization are many. Some time ago, the absorption of NUS civilization as a subsidiary civilization allowed him, as well as everyone in the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament, to taste the sweetness. Although NUS civilization currently only has less than 0.1% of its scale left, the potential contained in its race is immeasurable. The collision between different civilizations will cause the technological level of this civilization to rise rapidly, but the disadvantages are also obvious. War will most likely always accompany human civilization. In fact, according to Yongchang's idea, human civilization should huddle in a corner, quietly develop to level 8 with the help of the technology tree, no, level 9, and then stand up and make its own voice. By then, he would be 98% sure to easily resolve all crises. What a sweeper. What a pastoralist. It's just a subsidiary civilization under the jurisdiction of the People's Union. But judging from the current situation, this is obviously unrealistic. The abundance of materials at the edge of the galaxy cannot support the normal development of an advanced civilization. Thinking of this, he sighed again and gave up the thought of continuing to develop. Ready to set sail. 0. Start planning the route and integrating the fleet. After the order is issued. The complex starship factories and various facilities scattered in space began to gradually gather together outside the portholes. Large or small starships and carrier-based drones were speeding past. Under Zero's planning and control, there is an indescribable sense of order in the chaotic waterway. Under Yongchang's gaze, the originally scattered fleet was quickly becoming more organized as time went by. According to the plan, the fleet will conduct regular voyages for up to half a year, driven by antimatter engines. Bilen's voice came from behind, drawing Yongchang's attention back from the porthole window. The original plan was that within the next 6 months, the awakened personnel in the fleet will gradually enter hibernation. Professor, I don't hibernate, Yongchang said cheerfully. I haven't experienced the feeling of curvature navigation. So why do I hibernate? It's not too late to hibernate after the fleet enters warp state. After finishing speaking, he glanced at Ibanin in surprise. Can those academicians be willing to bear such a historic scene? Bilin smiled bitterly when he heard this and reached out to call up the holographic list. Professor, what they said is exactly the same as you, except for the original test pilot, no one was willing to enter hibernation and had to wait until the moment the curvature voyage began. Ha ha ha. Yongchang suddenly put his hands on his hands and laughed. It's just as I expected. Okay. He patted Bilin's shoulder gently and said comfortingly, it's just an extra half year's consumption of supplies. There are only so many people in the Academy of Sciences, so it won't have much impact on the plan. Suddenly, Yongchang seemed to realize something, turned his head again, and glanced at the list, and said softly, Zyrohi, where is your name? You decided to hibernate now, Yongchang looked at Ibilin in front of him in disbelief. What a joke. This is curvature navigation. He didn't believe that anyone could resist the temptation of experiencing curvature navigation in person. Ahem. Ibilin scratched his head with an embarrassed smile on his face and coughed lightly. Professor, I am the person in charge of this navigation plan. I must wait until everyone hibernates before I can hibernate, isn't it? Bilin's voice became lower and lower. Obviously, he himself didn't believe this statement. Yongchang, looking at Yongchang's meaningful and contemptuous eyes, Bilin hurriedly laughed and turned away. Professor, you go first. I'm leaving first. After that, Bilin fled from the porthole viewing area. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 661 Blue Shift. Half a year later, a huge fleet from the black hole area quietly passed through the deep space driven by antimatter engines. Several asteroids coming from afar came towards the fleet. The next second point. Before they could touch the starship armor, they were blocked by an invisible barrier. Their own inertia, coupled with several distorted gravitational fields, directly tore their fragile bodies apart. The asteroids turned into countless fragments, drew a graceful arc, and slid towards the rear of the fleet. Professor, the gravitational influence of the black hole has been reduced to below the standard value. The electronic synthesized sound sounded in the command center of Earth. Yongchang nodded and checked and confirmed the space-time curvature value sent back by the detector again. After confirming that the values had returned to normal, he took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Attention, all units, fleet, prepare to enter the curvature navigation state." The moment the voice fell, the originally quiet command center suddenly became lively. The output power of the antimatter engine begins to increase. 20%, 35%. The curvature bubble begins to be generated, and the current space-time curvature is 0.167. This is the space-time distortion phenomenon caused by the fleet's own mass and gravitational shield. As the intensity of the curvature bubble gradually increases, the space-time curvature value begins to fall rapidly. Correction. The current space-time curvature is 0, and the curvature bubble is working normally. Prepare to start the curvature engine. After the report, Hebelin pressed the virtual button in the holographic projection with a serious look. The positive and negative gravitational fields are being generated. As Zero's electronic synthesized sound sounded, a slight tremor came from the deck under his feet. A light and weak sense of weightlessness followed. This is normal. Due to the old age of the starship and the backwardness of some devices, there are some flaws in the antimatter engine power supply. This ship is about to enter the curvature navigation state. Please be prepared, passengers. Curvature navigation countdown. 30, 29, 28, A series of bright red countdowns with warning meanings appeared in front of everyone, accompanied by electronic synthesized sounds. Yongchang took cautious steps and half floated and half walked to the porthole of the command center. Unlike conventional driving methods, during curvature navigation, the crew members on board do not need to lie in the deep sea cabin and can even walk around at will. During curvature navigation, it is the surrounding space-time that moves the starship. The starship itself remains relatively still with space-time. Therefore, a starship entering the curvature state will not feel any acceleration. Similarly, under the wrapping of the curvature bubble, the starship can also avoid the slow clock and length contraction effects brought about by the special theory of relativity. Yongchang cast his eyes to the front of the starship. The slightly distorted starlight indicates that an extremely strong gravitational field is being generated in front of the starship. 3, 2, 1 exclamation point. Curvature navigation officially started. Current navigation speed of this ship 1.1 c. The quantum long distance communication device is self-checking. Information transmission status is normal. Current navigation speed 2c. The moment the countdown ended, the faint feeling of weightlessness disappeared, and Yongchang only felt his body sink, and his feet stepped firmly on the deck again. He didn't care about these small details at this moment. All his attention was attracted by the scene outside the porthole. In the curvature state, the universe outside the porthole presents an extremely strange phenomenon, as the starship's navigation speed continues to increase. The starlight in front gradually becomes stronger. At the same time, these lights gradually show a faint blue. The wavelength of light becomes shorter and moves to the blue section of the spectrum. This is the blue shift in the Doppler effect. This means that these light sources are approaching them rapidly. In other words, they are approaching these infinitely distant stars at a very fast speed. Yongchang turned his head and looked at the back of the starship. Unlike the brilliant light curtain in front of the starship, there is a thick black darkness. Starlight can no longer catch up with this wild horse. 0. How is the black hole tractor? Yongchang retracted his amazed gaze and turned to ask. The black hole tractor, as the name suggests, is used to pull the macro black hole that humans have spent a lot of effort to create. As for why it is necessary to take it on an interstellar voyage, as time goes by, anti-gravitons will gradually lose their characteristics and transform into gravitons again. Therefore, in order to ensure the normal operation of the curvature engine, a stable anti-graviton mining source is needed. And the macro black hole has become this mineral source. The way to take it on a long voyage is actually not complicated. First of all, the macro black hole needs to be starved a little. When its mass and gravitational influence range are reduced to a certain extent, it is pulled into the black hole tractor with the help of the gravitational field. Similarly, with the help of the internal gravitational field, the black hole, the tractor and the surrounding space and time remain relatively still. The last step is to start the curvature engine and let this macro black hole enter the curvature navigation state. It sounds simple, but when it is actually done, it brings a lot of trouble and difficulties to the human fleet. Most of Liu Yongchang's work in the past period of time was also to solve this difficulty. Although after various rigorous calculations and several tests, it is almost certain that there will be no accidents, but it is a black hole after all. Even if it is a macro black hole, its essence is still the most powerful celestial body in the universe. The black hole tractor has successfully entered the curvature navigation state. The macro black hole is currently in good condition, and the black hole traction field is operating well. Hearing Zero's response, LV Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief, and then turned his head again to look at the porthole on his side. His eyes flashed with an intoxicated and obsessed look. Similar to LV Yongchang, after confirming that all starships had successfully entered the curvature state, each academician stood up from his seat and walked quickly to the porthole of the command center. Hey, Leo Ko, tell me how long you have been watching. Quickly, make room for me, and let me see too. Fang Zhu's shouting came from not far behind him. Go away, there's nothing to see. The real-time camera footage is on the holographic projection. You can see it's the same. How can it be the same? Besides, if there's nothing to see, why are you occupying this seat? Fang Zhu naturally wouldn't believe Ko Liangke's nonsense. His eyebrows were raised, and his voice suddenly became louder. Look, there are still so many people waiting to see it. Current navigation speed 10C. Listening to the bustling voices in the command center, LV Yongchang showed a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. It seems that the development of human civilization has begun to go smoothly. Chapter 662 Kepler 452b. Although curvature navigation was the first experience for all the academicians, but the scenery outside the window, which had almost no changes, soon became boring. After the novelty completely disappeared, everyone went into hibernation one by one. The lights of Earth gradually went out, and the original hustle and bustle gradually returned to tranquility. In the deep universe, the fleet, under the protection of the curvature bubble, sped towards the first destination at 10 times the speed of light. There, the fleet stopped briefly to replenish the almost exhausted antimatter. Everything was done autonomously by the Zero control robot. According to the preset program, Zero will wake up all scientific researchers only when it reaches the destination, that is, the Kepler 452 star system. Earth calendar year 3605. The azure blue holographic projection light was lit up again in the dim command center of Earth. Current distance to the target star system: 1 light year. Arrived at the warning distance, the fleet is exiting the curvature navigation state. Right square bracket 1 light year away from the Kepler 452 star system. This is the empty space between star systems in the cold and silent universe. Except for a few starlights, there are only a few small macrometeorites. Suddenly, the calm space and time became violently turbulent. The next second, a huge fleet suddenly appeared in this empty space. The macrometeorite group in front of the fleet seemed to have been attacked by some invisible attack, and instantly turned into countless fine powders and dissipated in the visible universe. The turbulent space and time gradually calmed down, the fleet's operating status gradually stabilized, and the intensity of gamma rays released by the tail antimatter engine also slowly Decade point. A few minutes later, the side hatch of the giant flagship in the center of the fleet slowly opened. Point. A large number of detectors lined up in a neat queue and filed out of the hatch. Point. After a short stop, they drove the antimatter engine and accelerated towards the star system in front. Professor, welcome to the year 3608 of the Earth calendar. The electronic synthesized voice sounded in Yongchang's ears, awakening his mind that had not yet fully recovered. 3608. Yes, LV. Yongchang closed his eyes slightly and murmured in a low voice. He coughed out the remaining deep sea fluid, took a deep breath, and asked in a deep voice, where is the fleet, currently? 0.01 light years away from the target star system. Zero responded quickly. Hearing this, he suddenly opened his eyes, and a strong shock flashed in the depths of his eyes. Fast, really too fast. In just 308 years, the human fleet has crossed a distance that was previously unimaginable. Did you encounter any accidents during the voyage, LV? Yongchang asked in a low voice, while struggling to get up from the hibernation cabin. According to the plan, the energy replenishment points are all planetless star systems. Zero responded to Yongchang's question meticulously. Therefore, no traces of advanced civilization were detected during the voyage. LV. Yongchang nodded to show his understanding. That's normal. Since the earth-shaking battle between the sweeper civilization and the pastoral school, this corner of the Milky Way has almost become a silent place. Advanced civilizations naturally dare not speak rashly. And low-level civilizations, needless to say. This is one of the reasons why LV Yongchang dared to risk crossing 1539 light years. The other academicians awake. After getting a positive answer from Zero, LV Yongchang put on his clothes and walked out the door. Tell them to report to the command center immediately. Received. Inside the command center of Earth, LV Yongchang and a group of academicians carefully looked through the various data sent back by the detector. He waved his hand and retrieved the basic information of the Kepler 452 star system from the data in front of him. A high-definition image of a planet appeared in the huge holographic projection. It is basically consistent with the observation results of Hebelin at the time. The Kepler 452 star system consists of 6 planets, including 2 gas giants, 1 iron planet, 1 ice giant and 2 rocky planets. The main star is an orange dwarf. Compared with the Sun, its mass and size are relatively small, and its stellar activity is relatively gentle, enough to provide us with a good living environment. The Sun is a yellow dwarf, and orange dwarfs are larger than red dwarfs and smaller than yellow dwarfs. Among them, the first planet, Kepler 452b, is a rocky planet with a surface gravity of 2.03 g. Preliminary detection shows that the surface liquid water content is relatively low. However, the probe has discovered several comets containing a large amount of water resources in the star system, so there is no need to worry about water resources. Speaking of this, Yongchang's voice paused slightly. The atmosphere is composed of carbon dioxide, oxygen, and nitrogen. According to the calculation formula, Kepler 452b has a similarity of 0.91 to the Earth. While speaking, LV Yongchang called up the surface image of Kepler 452b. So high. Fang Zhu beside him exclaimed in a low voice. The similarity of a planet to the Earth is comprehensively evaluated based on various factors such as atmosphere, geological conditions, gravity, etc. With the planetary transformation technology mastered by human civilization today, as long as the similarity with the Earth reaches 0.7 or more, it can become a candidate colonization planet for human civilization. The similarity of 0.91 means that they only need to make simple transformations, and this planet can become the best place for human settlement. After a brief exclamation, Fang Zhu immediately asked, have any signs of life been found in the Kepler 452 star system? Such a habitable living environment has a great possibility of developing civilization. The electronic synthesized voice quickly sounded. The probes sent out have completed detailed exploration of the 6 planets. So far, no signs of life have been found on the surfaces of the 6 planets. But LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he stopped checking the data in his hand. But he frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, year ago, the probe found traces of biological activities and fossils in the strata of Kepler 452b. Hiss. A gasp sounded in the command center. Fossils? Mao Zedong stood up from his seat excitedly, asking anxiously, have you tested it? When are they from? Preliminary test data shows that these organisms lived 500 million years ago. 500 million years ago. Zeros. Answer. Poured cold water on Mao Zedong. 500 million years. It's too long. Point long enough to wipe out any fantasy. Why? Fang Zhu's face gradually became solemn. What is the reason for their demise? I think it should be the greenhouse effect. LV. Yongchang stretched out his finger and gently tapped the data in the holographic projection point. Carbon dioxide concentration. It's a bit like the Earth that is Venusizing. LV. Yongchang gently touched his chin and said softly. PS. Thanks to Sunleap, the master sent the master certification. Chapter 663 Planetary Transformation Plan. Venusization. Fang Zhu asked in a low voice. Before Liu Yongchang could speak, He Bin stepped forward and took over the conversation. Yes, currently, the greenhouse effect on Kepler 452b is severe, according to the data returned by the detector. 500 million years ago, this planet had a large area of ocean. As the greenhouse effect goes out of control, the planet's surface temperature rises rapidly, and the oceans are gradually evaporated and gradually dissipated by the stellar wind. But due to its huge mass and relatively strong gravity, some small lakes still remain on its surface to this day. Fang Zhu understood. So, generally speaking, the priority target of the planetary transformation plan is its out-of-control greenhouse effect. Bilin nodded slightly. You can say that, Liu. Yongchang also turned to look at an academician sitting in the corner of the command center. He smiled gently and greeted softly. Academician Shen, it's your turn to study the field. Hearing Liu Yongchang's call, Shen Shenwen quickly stood up from his seat. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes, and he responded with a strong tone. Professor, I'm here. No wonder he reacted so strongly. Academician Shenwen, who studies biosphere technology and planetary transformation technology, is not very noticeable most of the time. The reason, except for the time on the Dawn Star, the fleet was always on the way to escape or exploit resources. There was no time or conditions to transform the planet into a habitable planet. And planetary transformation technology is an extremely large-scale macro-type technology. At the same time, the computing resources allocated to him are not enough to allow him to simulate the detailed changes of a planet during its transformation. For Shen Shenwen, it has been a long time since he conducted a comprehensive research on planetary transformation. Liu Yongchang watched Shen Shenwen's reaction without hesitation. As a researcher, he naturally knew the reason for Shen Shenwen's reaction. He sighed silently in his heart, and the gentle smile on his face became a little stronger again. Academician Shen, calm down. Human civilization is about to begin a new era, and your research project will receive more resources from the People's Federation, not just Kepler 452b. There are probably many planets in the star system around us waiting for you to formulate a transformation plan. Liu Yongchang's words made Shen Shenwen's mood even more agitated. Well, Shenwen's lips trembled slightly, and he responded continuously. Professor, don't worry, I will draw up a modification plan for Kepler 452b as soon as possible. A week later, under Zero's control, the huge fleet stopped accurately and slowly near Kepler 452b. Hundreds of engineering ships and TOT supply ships were the first to set off, driven by antimatter engines, and flew quickly towards the orange dwarf star not far away that exuded a gentle light. Their mission is simple. Rebuild the Dyson Cloud antimatter factory in the shortest possible time, and quickly replenish the antimatter reserves consumed during ultra-long distance voyages. In addition, the space mobile factory is also unfolding around Kepler 452b one by one under the control of Zero. Just 1 week later, the originally desolate star system has become lively. Small starships shuttle back and forth between planets, transporting various materials. Mechanical arms thousands of meters long move slowly through the universe, completing their respective manufacturing tasks delicately and quickly. Earth, the flagship of human civilization, stays quietly not far from Kepler 452b. The antimatter engine at its tail emits weak gamma rays, driving this old flagship to silently follow Kepler 452b. Inside the command center, Shen Siwen stood in front of the academicians with a serious expression. The real-time image of Kepler 452b is displayed on the holographic projection beside him. Dear academicians, the planetary transformation plan has been completed and passed zero preliminary verification, he said solemnly. Next, let me briefly introduce the transformation plan to you. As he spoke, he stretched his hand across the holographic projection. First and foremost, what urgently needs to be addressed is the intense greenhouse effect that is running out of control on the planet. Considering the issue of the transformation cycle, I'm not prepared to choose the traditional atmospheric transformer 1 to implement the transformation. As the words fell, a familiar yet unfamiliar thing appeared in the holographic projection. This is his. What the hell? Academician Shen, are you crazy? The moment the projection appeared, the originally quiet and orderly command center exploded. Even Lu Yongchang, who had gone through ups and downs and had seen all big scenes, couldn't help but frown. Antimatter bomb, he whispered softly. Yes, it's the antimatter bomb. Shen Shenwen's expression became excited. With the power of the antimatter bomb explosion, the dense atmosphere on Kepler 452b will be blown away. In addition, we found that Kepler 452b has a relatively flat surface, which will have a greater impact on future sea building projects. Calculation results show that, if the current landform characteristics are used, more than 85% of the land will be submerged once the sea building project is implemented. With the help of antimatter bombs, we can quickly create oceans, basins and other surface structures in the planned area. Along with Shen Siwen's words, several huge mushroom clouds appeared extremely suddenly on the surface of the desolate planet in the holographic projection. The mushroom cloud expanded violently, and the shock wave of the explosion directly penetrated the dense atmosphere of Kepler 452b. In an instant, it was like a hole was broken in the atmosphere, and a large amount of accelerated atmosphere spewed out from the hole and escaped into the surrounding desolate space. At the same time, several huge deep pits appeared on the originally flat ground point. After filling with water, this is the ocean of Kepler 452b. His looking at this spectacular simulation, even Lu Yongchang couldn't help but gasp. Crazy, so crazy, don't tell me he has never seen such a scene. After the explosion of 19,131 precisely placed antimatter bombs, the density of Kepler 452b's atmosphere will drop to a range where humans can live normally. At the same time, the loss of a large amount of carbon dioxide will also greatly reduce the greenhouse effect. Shenwen continued. The next step is the second step, the sea construction project. There are many water-rich comets in the Kepler 452 star system. With their help, we can easily turn Kepler 452b into Earth 2.0. The third step is global climate macro control. Through the Climate Control Satellite Network and Atmospheric Transformer 1, we can quickly complete the final fine-tuning of the atmosphere. Preliminary calculations show that it will take approximately 30 to 50 years to complete all the renovation work. The following is the feasibility calculation report provided by Zero. There was dead silence in the command center, looking at the academicians who were thinking carefully with their brows furrowed. Shenwen had a trace of uneasiness deep in his eyes. The applause from Lu Yongchang broke the dead silence. The next second, the sparse applause quickly became enthusiastic. Chapter 664 Personnel Selection Issue. Earth Office of the Speaker of the People's League of Nations. The office door slowly opened, and Fang Zhu's voice came from outside the door. Chairman Han, are you free now? The movement of chairs and the sound of footsteps sounded at the same time, followed closely by Han Kaiming's slightly dull voice. Academician Fang, long time no see. Along with the rapid footsteps, the dull voice gradually became louder. Quick, please come in. Looking at the familiar, slightly wrinkled face in the office, Fang Zhu also had a long lost smile on his face. Long time no see. Long time no see. The last time we met was probably hundreds of years ago, right? Fang Zhu looked at Han Kaiming teasingly and walked towards the office. Hey. Han Kaiming waved his hand helplessly. If you include the length of hibernation, we should not have seen each other for almost 800 years. When I woke up, I even felt that I was a little behind the times. Warp navigation, something I never dared to imagine before, has come true. Facing Han Kaiming's sigh, Fang Zhu sat on the chair happily. How about it? You free now? He asked with a smile. I'm free. Of course I'm free, Han Kaiming said repeatedly. The parliament just woke up from hibernation, and now everyone doesn't know what to do. As he said that, he spread his hands and looked at Fang Zhu helplessly. There is no way, except for the academicians of your Academy of Sciences, no ordinary people are awake at all. Even if we want to do something, we can't do anything. Fang Zhu looked at Han Kaiming with a smile. Don't worry, Chairman Han. No, am I here to cause trouble for you, Han Kaiming? Does anyone talk like that, or has he failed to keep up with the times? Currently, human civilization has entered the 5th level of civilization, and we have basic self-protection capabilities. Fang Zhu looked a little more serious. Therefore, Professor Lu decided to change the policy towards alien civilization. We need to develop our own power. Han Kaiming's eyes moved slightly. You mean ally? Has the Academy of Sciences discovered other civilizations now? Not an ally. Fang Zhu shook his head slightly and corrected Han Kaiming. To be precise, he is a vassal. Han Kaiming's voice suddenly paused, and he asked in an incredible tone. A vassal? Yes, a subsidiary civilization. Fang Zhu explained in detail. We need to give key technologies to affiliated civilizations, and they need to pay for various resources and even lives. This civilization development model is modeled after the sweeper civilization. The development of higher civilization requires more and more resources. Although there is no shortage of resources in the universe, it is just too big. If we want to ensure the rapid development of human civilization, we must absorb enough subsidiary civilizations. Han Kaiming nodded silently. I understand. What Professor Lu means is, you also know that the people in the Academy of Sciences like to do research. Let them deal with the complex relationships between civilizations. It is better to let them die. Fang Zhu laughed self-deprecatingly. So, Professor Lu wants to. It is necessary to select some people within the parliament for training, who are responsible for the liaison between human civilization and other civilizations and the absorption of affiliated civilizations. Don't worry about the theory, the School of Sociology will fully assist them. Han Kaiming was stunned. He frowned slightly and thought carefully. Let me think about it. As he spoke, he reached out and pulled up the members' information and began to screen them one by one. Xenophilia. I'm afraid we have to eliminate this group of members first. Han Kaiming murmured to himself, but such people are considered a different species in the parliament. Fang Zhu didn't speak, just nodded in agreement. After all, subsidiary civilization is just a nice way of saying it. Good. Congressmen who uphold xenophobia cannot do the dirty work of absorbing subordinate civilizations. To be honest, sometimes I admire you, Fang Zhu said with a wry smile. I can't figure out why under the previous circumstances, there were pro-foreignists in the parliament, and how did you tolerate them? Han Kaiming shrugged. To put it simply, when birds are big, they can be found in any forest. Fang Zhu was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. As for how to tolerate them, Han Kaiming waved his hand and looked at Fang Zhu helplessly. This is the parliament after all. I can only pretend that I haven't seen their proposal. After saying that, Han Kaiming once again crossed out some of the names of some members. Extreme xenophobia. This must also be eliminated. Otherwise, let alone absorbing affiliated civilizations, who knows what trouble will happen. This time, the list quickly dwindled. Obviously, extreme xenophobia is the mainstream trend among congressmen. Han Kaiming carefully looked at the list in front of him that had been streamlined several times and thought for a moment. Yes, he raised his hand and drew a circle on a person's name. Lin Shuguang. I have an impression of this guy. He is a good material. Fang Zhu curiously opened Lin Shuguang's identity information. Hey, they are still a new generation born in Dawnstar. He exclaimed with some surprise. You have become a member of parliament at such a young age. Your ability is extraordinary, Han. Kaiming smiled and affirmed Fang Zhu's words. It's extraordinary, born in the public welfare system. He received a good education. He has a strong sense of belonging and responsibility to human civilization. He is xenophobic, but not extreme, which just meets Professor Lu's requirements. He is also good at performing on the spot. Okay, let's take him. Fang Zhu interrupted Han Kaiming and made the decision directly. I still believe in the candidate recommended by Chairman Hong. However, to be on the safe side, the sociology branch may need to conduct several tests. Han Kaiming smiled and nodded. It should be so. After all, this is a major event related to civilizations. It's definitely right to be cautious. By the way, Chairman Han, Fang Zhu said as he stood up, please help me pick a few more people. I can't assign all the tasks to him alone. Right. Okay. Han Kaiming's smile became more and more intense. Give me a day. After I confirm the candidates, I will let them report to the sociology branch directly. Chapter 665. Sociology Branch. After watching Fang Zhu leave, the smile on Han Kaiming's face gradually faded, and his expression became solemn. From Fang Zhu's words, he could clearly feel the importance that the Academy of Sciences attached to this matter. It's difficult. Han Kaiming sighed softly and turned his head to look at the list of people left in the holographic projection. He carefully read the information of each member and carefully made marks on the list. For a long time. Han Kaiming breathed a long sigh of relief, stood up from his seat, and gently tapped the list of 50 people in the holographic projection with his finger, and whispered, 0. Help me call these people over. Specific matters. Don't tell them for the time being. 2 hours later, Lin Shuguang left the office of the chairman of the council with a bit of confusion in his eyes. Member Lin, what did Chairman Hong say to you? As soon as he walked out of the office door, Lin Shuguang was dragged over by a member waiting in the corridor. Qiu Feng? After seeing who was talking, Lin Shuguang asked in a low voice in surprise, why are you here too? As he spoke, he turned his head and glanced at the open door of the chairman's office and lowered his voice again to indicate, is it also Chairman Hong's order? Qiu Feng nodded nervously and said in a somewhat anxious tone, yes, I was getting familiar with the new things in the fleet, and suddenly I received a message from Ling, so he took a deep breath and looked at Lin Shuguang sincerely. What happened? Why did Chairman Hong meet with us alone? Hearing this, Lin Shuguang's eyes were a little more confused. He shook his head and murmured in a low voice, I don't know either, Chairman. Hong just asked me to report to the sociology branch. I don't know the specific matters, that's all. Qiu Feng asked in disbelief, sociology branch? Are there any cooperative projects between the parliament and the sociology branch? Lin Shuguang shook his head again. I don't know. He hesitated for a while and said hesitantly, but I feel it should be a good thing. Sociology branch of the Human Union Academy of Sciences. It should be here. Lin Shuguang looked at the words displayed on the holographic projection, and a bit of hesitation appeared on his face. Speaking of it, the relationship between the sociology branch and the parliament is quite close. When Shuguang Star was developing, in order to ensure the advancement of the social public welfare system, the sociology branch and the parliament had a lot of close exchanges, but at that time, he was just a small minion. I vaguely remember that he was standing in the crowd, watching those social science scholars communicating with Chairman Hong with a little excitement. That extremely perfect model of social public support system deeply shocked Lin Shuguang at that time. Later, he successfully served as an ordinary counselor. It was naturally not the turn of a new counselor like him to communicate with the sociology branch. Therefore, until now, he still had a little awe for these researchers in his heart. He looked at the closed door in front of him and the holographic house number above the door and took a deep breath. After calming down, He walked forward. Swish. The door opened automatically, and the spacious and bright room inside appeared in front of Lin Shuguang. In the holographic projections, various data and models that he could not understand were presented. Logically speaking, such a scene should have brought a great shock to Lin Shuguang. But his eyes did not stay on these high-end data and models, but were attracted by the scene not far away. An academician in a research suit was lying on his desk with his arms and legs spread out, holding a bag of unfinished snacks in his hand, and staring at the holographic projection above. Seeing such an eye-catching scene, Lin Shuguang's eyes twitched slightly. Yo. Someone is finally here, perhaps. Because he heard the sound of the door opening, the academician lying on the desk sat up suddenly, holding a bag of snacks in his hand, and came to him. Brother, are you from the parliament? This extremely strong contrast made Lin Shuguang stunned. Ah, what? I'm asking you a question. Are you from the parliament? Ah, yes, Chairman Hung sent me here. Lin Shuguang stammered in response, staring at the colorful snack bag in a daze. Want some? The academician noticed Lin Shuguang's eyes and raised his hand to wave the snack bag. Potato chips with spicy hot pot flavor. This is a rare commodity. The artificial gravity device on the earth only covers a small area. There is no hot pot to eat, so I can only eat this to satisfy my craving. Here, one piece. As he said, he handed the snack bag to Lin Shuguang. No need. Lin Shuguang obviously has not yet adapted to this kind of chat rhythm, and repeatedly refused. Excuse me, what is your name? Academician. Lin put the snack bag aside, casually dragged over a holographic projection, glanced at it, and raised his eyebrows. Wow. We are still relatives. My surname is also Lin. Lin Zile. Nice to meet you, Counselor Lin Shuguang. It's a good name. It reminds me of the days when the social public welfare system was first implemented. Lin Shuguang was slightly startled, and his expression suddenly became serious. Relax. Academician Lin smiled and patted Lin Shuguang on the shoulder. We are different from the parliament here. There are not so many rules and regulations. As long as you can produce research results, it's okay for you to turn the laboratory into an amusement park. Lin Shuguang's eyes twitched, and he nodded with a wry smile. I see. You are the first to come to the sociology branch. Just when Lin Shuguang's mentality was a little relaxed, academician Lin changed the subject, staring at Lin Shuguang, and his expression became serious. Did Chairman Hung tell you what to do in the future? Lin Shuguang's eyes flashed with surprise, and he shook his head subconsciously. I don't know. Very good. Academician Lin nodded with satisfaction. Chairman Hung is still as reassuring as always. Then, in just a few minutes, Lin Shuguang, who had all the right to speak, hesitated and asked, do I need to do anything? Chapter 666. The People. 039. S Union. 039. S Diplomatic Policy. No rush. Academician Lin smiled, waved his hand, and asked casually, what do you think of alien civilization? Lin Shuguang's eyes were even more confused. How come it's so easy to get involved with alien civilizations again? Such a jumping topic greatly consumes Lin Shuguang's energy and thinking ability. How do you think we should treat alien civilizations? Perhaps. Sensing Lin Shuguang's doubts, academician Lin added again. How to deal with alien civilization? Lin Shuguang frowned slightly, and after thinking for a moment, he uttered one word. Hit. Looking back at the past 1,000 years of history, we have sacrificed too much for the continuation of civilization. There is an old saying that goes well, why repay kindness with kindness for evil? So, for these alien civilizations, we should. Those are just some alien civilizations. Academician Lin interrupted Lin Shuguang's words. According to Paint, as the level of civilization increases, the laws of the dark forest no longer apply. That's just the painting's unilateral statement. We can't confirm the true situation of the universe at all. Lin Shuguang's emotions suddenly became excited. Academician Lin, you won't be like the group of people in the parliament and decide to make peace with alien civilizations. Let's get along. This is simply a traitor to human civilization. Lin Xu Guang panted heavily and stared at Academician Lin in front of him with slightly red eyes. Listen to me first, Academician. Lin was not angry, but said in a calm tone, what would you think if I told you that a group of individuals from extraterrestrial civilizations already live in the biological laboratory of the Academy of Sciences? What? Lin Shuguang's face changed drastically and he exclaimed, how could Professor Lu allow this to happen? It's Professor Lu's order. The reason, they have high scientific research value, so they are now a subsidiary civilization of human civilization. Academician Lin said softly, do you understand this, Lin? Shuguang's face relaxed a little. I see. So, what is your attitude now? Academician Lin looked serious, staring straight into Lin Shuguang's eyes, trying to read his true thoughts. Lin Shuguang subconsciously moved his gaze away, but soon he moved it back and looked directly into Academician Lin's eyes openly. For those civilizations that are hostile to human civilization, I still stick to my previous idea and fight. Beat them until they obey. If they don't, beat them until they become extinct. As for those civilizations that can contribute to human civilization, we can consider accepting them as subsidiary civilizations. Lin Shuguang said word by word. Of course, this must pass strict tests, and at the same time, strict regulations must be made on them. Restrictions. Academician Lin did not speak, still staring into Lin Shuguang's eyes. After a long while, he smiled and extended his right hand to Lin Shuguang. Congratulations, Congressman Lin Shuguang, you will become a member of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Federation. Your main responsibility is to deal with various matters between human civilization and extraterrestrial civilization. Next, the School of Sociology will carry out corresponding training courses for you. At the same time, we will conduct rigorous testing and training on your professionalism. In addition, in future work, the Sociology branch will be the main technical support department of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Federation. As time goes by, the Kepler 452 star system changes more and more. The originally desolate and empty star system has now gradually turned into a prosperous zone. The successful deployment of the Dyson Cloud system has replenished critical energy for the fleet, and at the same time, it has also made the infrastructure monster of human civilization active again. Under Zero's control, countless projects progress simultaneously. With the joint efforts of hundreds of space starship factories, the fleet expansion and upgrading project has been carried out. In order to adapt to the next direction of development, the fleet types of human civilization have also begun to be subdivided. The flagship is naturally the Earth, and this will never change. The secondary flagship, officially renamed Titan Mothership, is the core starship of each branch fleet. Golden Crow, Battleship, Zuanwu, Frigate White Tiger, Destroyer. Starships equipped with a variety of weapons, equipment and defense devices are continuously produced from factories. Other side. The planetary terraforming work of Kepler 452b has already begun. Tens of thousands of small antimatter bombs detonated one after another, directly lifting the extremely dense atmosphere of Kepler 452b. Its relatively flat surface has also seen dramatic changes under the plate movement. 10,000 meter high mountains rose from the ground, and volcanoes that had been dormant for countless years began to erupt again. The radiation brought by the antimatter bomb had not yet dissipated, and 3 huge ice comets fell into the atmosphere under the tug of the Teoti material ship. The majestic heavy rain suddenly filled the entire planet, washing away traces of past life on this ancient planet. Not only Kepler 452b, but also other planets in the star system, as long as they are valuable for mining, have been included in the mining plan. These are all changes within the star system. Outside the star system, the interstellar region with extremely thin matter is already filled with various detectors and space forts. At the same time, small probes were sent to nearby star systems. While guarding against alien invasion, human civilization needs to understand the surrounding environment as soon as possible. As various tasks were put on track, LV Yongchang finally issued the order that the academicians had been waiting for a long time. Everyone, I declare that the scientific research work of the Human Union Academy of Sciences will be fully restarted. P.S. Thanks to the great Master Jian Haitang Hualuo for his certification. Chapter 667. Quick Sun. First of all, the first project we need to overcome is communication technology. Yongchang stood in front of the command center, looking solemnly at all the academicians of the Academy of Sciences present. Currently, the Space Starship Factory has successfully manufactured the first Planet-class starship, although it is only a small engineering ship and does not carry many advanced weapon modules. Its comprehensive performance has far exceeded the scope of the original satellite-class starship. 4. Planet-class starships equipped with a new generation of curvature engines. The curvature navigation speed has been increased to 30 c, which is still far from the theoretical upper limit of 50 c, but these caps are just a bunch of useless numbers to us today. Due to the obstacles of communication technology, the starship's sailing speed can still only be maintained at 10 c and below. Communication technology has become the biggest shortcoming limiting the strength of the fleet. Yongchang's voice echoed in the command center. The expressions on the faces of the academicians of the Academy of Sciences gradually became serious. Everyone is aware of this problem. But, Yongchang, do you think, besides quantum long-distance communication, what other means of communication can exceed the speed of light? Fang Zhu sighed softly and said with some confusion, Academician Yongchang has been working hard to improve quantum communication technology. He also reported to me the progress of the work, but we have not found a way to circumvent the event form theory. Yongchang chuckled and waved his hand gently. Quantum communication is definitely not going to work. We need to blaze a new trail. As he spoke, he raised his right hand and operated on the blue holographic projection beside him. A line of bright white text slowly emerged in the projection. Tachyon communication technology. After a short period of silence, low and intensive discussions came from all directions in the command center 2 days ago. Yongchang is sitting in his office, which is one of the few areas in the earth that is covered with artificial gravity. He stretched his body, lay back on the office chair, and breathed a long sigh of relief. A brand new star system means a lot of chores. Fortunately, with everyone's efforts, these trivial matters were resolved one by one, and the human fleet gradually got on the right track of development. With a slight smile on his lips, he slowly closed his eyes. With a slight movement of consciousness, he sank into the technology tree system in his mind. The mottled technology tree background remained as it always was, exuding a mysterious aura that constantly attracted his attention. Yongchang, who had a clear purpose, did not pay too much attention to this weird background and directly focused his attention on the white technology tree suspended in the air. Since entering the era of technological explosion, the technology tree of the 5th level civilization has been lit up a lot. His gaze skipped the bright cursors and extended directly to the extremely dim font. Tachyon communication technology. Tachyon. Countless information about Tachyon suddenly appeared in Yongchang's mind. Does this thing really exist? At the same time, deep confusion appeared in his mind. But soon, he put these doubts behind him. The technology marked on the technology tree has not had any errors so far. He began to focus himself. Inspiration also sprung up in his mind, like mushrooms after a rain. Not far away. Yongchang frowned slightly and muttered in a low voice, does this thing really exist? Since the beginning of the Earth's time, tachyons, subatomic particles, have always existed in the conjectures of human scientists. Subatomic particles, also known as subatomic particles, refer to particles with structures smaller than atoms, such as electrons, protons, neutrons, etc. According to theoretical speculation, the speed of tachyons is infinite and far exceeds the speed of light. Therefore, in a sense, it can achieve true long-distance communication. No matter where you are in the universe, tachyons can arrive in an instant, but so far, tachyons still only exist in the mathematical system, and we have never observed evidence of the existence of tachyons. Fang Zhu said in a deep voice. Yes. Yongchang nodded lightly. The observation of tachyons, or in other words, the observation of superlight objects, far exceeds our previous technical level. Yongchang's words touched the hearts of many academicians. I understand. You mean Tao Yuda suddenly realized, with a bit of excitement in his eyes, if we want to observe tachyons, we must sit on a curvature spacecraft. Yongchang nodded with satisfaction with a smile in his eyes. Right. If you compare the universe to an ocean, the speed of light is an uncrossable divide, which is the surface of the ocean. Below, the speed of light is seawater and our visible universe. Protons, neutrons, electrons, these sublight particles can never exceed the speed of light under normal circumstances, and those tachyons, such as tachyons, can never travel slower than the speed of light. Where they are is in the sky above the sea. This creates a phenomenon. We, who live in the sublight universe, can never spy on the phenomena that occur in the superlight universe, unless we break free from the shackles of the sea and rush into the sky. The curvature engine has brought us a breakthrough, I guess. When our speed exceeds the speed of light, some similar experiments may yield some additional discoveries. P.S. Thanks to the great Master Shumozi for his certification point update progress. 6/12 finished. More and more. Send. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 668. Imaginary numbers are not imaginary. Imaginary mass. I know that this kind of groundless speculation will not play any substantial role in scientific research. After saying that, Yongchang chuckled. But that was your guess. An academician shouted. For so long, Professor Liu, your guess has never been falsified. Yongchang curled his lips and said half jokingly, what if it's wrong this time? Then the academician who spoke scratched his head, and an awkward smile suddenly appeared on his face. There was also a slight kind laughter in the command center. Okay, let's get down to business. Yongchang reached out and dragged a holographic projection over and started writing on it. It's empty talk. Next, I will briefly explain to you the reasons for making this judgment. As soon as the words fell, the originally relaxed atmosphere in the command center suddenly became solemn. Every academician widened his eyes, fearing to miss even one punctuating step. After all, everyone knows that Professor Liu's deduction steps are particularly unconventional. In a days, you might have missed some important information. First of all, according to the special theory of relativity, objects with mass cannot exceed the speed of light. Just like protons and electrons, their running speed can only be infinitely close to the speed of light. So, for tachyons, we need to introduce a concept, virtual mass. A long time ago, during the study of quantum physics, we came to a conclusion. Imaginary numbers are not imaginary. Imaginary numbers that have meaning in mathematics also have corresponding meanings in reality. As he spoke, Yongchang quickly wrote something on the holographic projection. Based on the derivation steps here, we can extrapolate the concept of imaginary numbers. This extends the concept of virtual mass, and the mass of tachyon is an imaginary mass. It is precisely because of this that it can break away from the constraints of special relativity and become a faster than light particle. As Yongchang's words echoed in everyone's ears, there were more and more complicated formulas in the holographic projection. The speculation on the properties of tachyons is also based on the concept of virtual mass. Unlike ordinary particles, tachyons have a speed far exceeding the speed of light from the moment they appear. Its speed will increase infinitely as energy is dissipated, which is different from the particles we usually recognize. The moment its energy is exhausted and approaches zero, its speed will approach infinity. Therefore, if we want to observe tachyons, we must slow them down, which means we need to input a lot of energy into them. But even so, its speed will not be lower than the speed of light. Only with the help of curvature navigation can we get the opportunity to observe it. On the side, Tao Yuda murmured thoughtfully, then if tachyons really exist, we can draw a simple conclusion. What? Yongchang heard Tao Yuda's mumbling, and he turned to cast an inquiring look at Tao Yuda. Tao Yuda was silent for a while, and said in a determined tone, our universe is composed of virtual and real parts. The real universe is the visible universe within the speed of light, while the virtual universe is the invisible universe above the speed of light. After hearing this, Yongchang also fell into deep thought. After a long while, he nodded hesitantly and confirmed Tao Yuda's statement. This conclusion can indeed be drawn. Yongchang's words caused quite a stir in the command center. Academicians from related majors began to discuss it one after another. No, that's not right, Fang Zhu's voice drowned out all the subtle discussions. Professor, Tachyon has a big problem. Our cause and effect is reversed within the light cone. Everything is destiny. The emergence of Tachyon seems to break this proposition. I understand what you mean, Yongchang said softly. For the visible universe, the emergence of Tachyon seems to mean that it is possible to reverse time, and the causal relationship will also be reversed. But the universe is fair. According to current inferences, we can only discover tachyons when traveling at superlight speeds and receive information transmitted with the help of tachyons. In other words, only if we transcend the light cone can we obtain information outside the light cone. Cause and effect are not reversed. But what if? Fang Zhu said with an ugly face. What if tachyon breaks through this limit and affects the visible universe? If time can be turned back and cause and effect can be reversed, it means that our physics system has a huge problem to some extent. This will be an extremely huge blow to the science of human civilization. Fang Zhu's words were like a heavy hammer, hitting everyone's heart's hard point. Going back in time and reversing cause and effect will cause countless paradoxes. Whether it is science or philosophy, it will be a subversive storm. Yongchang took a deep breath. With a look of contemplation in his eyes, he raised his hand and waved it gently. Be quiet and let me think about it. The noisy command center became quiet again. Yongchang raised his head and looked at the holographic clock interface in the distance. The hands moved clockwise minute by minute, and the river of time flows forward evenly. Suddenly, the pointer began to reverse, and the long river of time began to flow upstream. The entire universe has changed. The cause and effect relationship is no longer maintained. A person walking on the road will suddenly die because a flower pot will hit him 10 minutes later. Yongchang shook his head vigorously and threw this extremely terrible picture out of his head. So far, we have never observed the occurrence of this phenomenon. Yongchang said word by word. Perhaps there is some self-correction mechanism in the universe that we don't know yet, which can prevent this situation from happening. Or parallel universe theory. As long as the parallel universe is affected, this incredible scene will not appear. When he said this, Yongchang only felt his heart tremble slightly. Could it be that? Yongchang calmed down and suppressed the groundless conjecture in his heart. He raised his hand and gently rubbed his slightly painful temple. Don't think too much about it. What we can think of, they can think of too. Since the universe has been running without any problems so far, let's not worry about it. Think about the specific experimental problems. Fang Zhu's face darkened, and he murmured in a low voice. Who are they? They are, of course, those advanced civilization sweepers. Pastoral school. Compared with human civilization, these advanced civilizations seem more likely to achieve such a feat. Thinking of this, Fang Zhu suddenly felt a chill coming from his back. Chapter 669. Traces left by the fast particle. 1 month later, after repeated improvements and perfection, the experimental plan was successfully launched. The entire experimental process was placed on a specially customized small starship. The overall shape of this experimental ship is spindle-shaped, and the outside of the experimental ship is surrounded by a circle of ring-shaped facilities. These ring-shaped facilities are the orbits of the particle accelerator. According to the experimental plan, the Academy of Sciences will conduct high-energy particle collision experiments again under the state of superluminal navigation. Because the particle acceleration orbit on the experimental ship is small in size and the acceleration energy provided is relatively weak, most of the particle acceleration work is placed outside the starship. Under the super large particle accelerator constructed by countless shipborne drones, protons will be accelerated to 1-1/10⁻40, the speed of light. Then These particles will be sent into the orbit around the experimental ship and maintain their running speed under the action of the magnetic field. Next, the experimental ship will enter the curvature navigation state under the impetus of the curvature engine. In order to prevent communication interruption, the maximum navigation speed is set at 10 times the speed of light. The last step is also the most critical step. At the same time as the particles collide, several high-energy laser generators will release high-energy lasers into the collision area. The purpose of doing this is naturally to provide energy to the so-called tachyons as much as possible and slow down their running speed, so that humans can observe them. Attention, all units, the tachyon observation experiment starts now. Start. The magnetic field of the shipborne drone and particle acceleration starts now. After several tests and confirmation that there are no emissions, the experiment is declared to begin. Like the last particle acceleration, the entire acceleration process takes about a year. 1 year later, the Earth calendar is 3610 years old. Professor, the proton has successfully entered the orbit of the experimental ship. The moment the electronic synthesized sound sounded, the atmosphere in the laboratory suddenly became tense. The most critical moment of the entire experiment has arrived. Start the curvature engine and drive the experimental ship into the curvature navigation state. LV. Yongchang gave the order in a deep voice. The next moment, the tremendous energy brought by the annihilation of antimatter poured into the curvature engine, and the positive and negative gravitational fields were quickly generated. The experimental ship, after a short wait, disappeared directly in front of everyone. The experimental ship successfully entered the curvature state. Current speed 1.1 c. Communication status is normal, orbiting protons are running normally, and the collision chamber is working normally. Listening to the broadcast from not far away, LV Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. He did not speak, but looked up at the holographic projection in front of him. As time went by, the numbers on it continued to increase. 1.2 c, 1.5 c, 2 c. Finally, when the number stopped at 10 c, LV Yongchang's eyes instantly became sharp. Particle collision experiment officially started. High energy laser generation unit start preheating. 2 protons, driven by the magnetic field, moved towards each other. Finally, they successfully met in the central area of the collision chamber. A large amount of energy was released, and a macro black hole appeared. But soon, the macro black hole without material replenishment evaporated instantly, and dozens of high-energy laser beams hit this small collision area straight. The collision experiment is over. A large amount of data poured into the central computer of Earth from the communication link. With the help of Zero, the preliminary screening of data was carried out quickly. Different from the purpose of the previous particle collision experiments, this time, the data mainly analyzed by the Academy of Sciences was the running speed of various particles produced after the collision. As time passed, the particle data produced by the collision were eliminated one by one. Their running speed did not exceed the speed of light. It seems. Fang Zhu looked at the bottom of the collision data, raised his hand and patted LV Yongchang's shoulder gently, and whispered to comfort, "It seems that there are no tachyons. It seems that we have taken the wrong path." LV Yongchang's eyes were still sharp, staring at the holographic projection in front of him. "No, it's not over yet. Tachyons must exist. Rather than being confident, it is better to say that it is trust in the technology tree." Fang Zhu sighed softly, shook his head, and seemed to want to say something, but was interrupted by the piercing alarm. Ding, ding, ding. Abnormal data detected. LV Yongchang's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a faint smile, and at the same time, he gave Fang Zhu beside him a smug look. As for Fang Zhu, he was stunned and stood there, his eyes filled with deep shock. The holographic projection screen changed rapidly, and the abnormal data marked by emphasis was clearly presented in front of everyone. Gamma rays. Looking at the data in front of him, LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows. In this set of abnormal data, there are a total of 2 gamma rays running in opposite directions, and at the same time, the intensity of the gamma rays changes from strong to weak. What does this mean? Fang Zhu frowned and asked in a low voice, "Isn't it just ordinary gamma rays?" "No, this is not an ordinary gamma ray. LV Yongchang seemed to have figured something out, and his expression suddenly became lively. I understand. I understand. Tachyon. This is the trace left by the movement of Tachyons. We found it. LV Yongchang's reaction made all the academicians present fall into confusion. Wait. Fang Zhu reached out and grabbed the ecstatic LV Yongchang. Explain yourself first. What? Trace? How can this be the trace of Tachyon movement? LV Yongchang took a deep breath, suppressed the excitement in his heart, and explained carefully. Before explaining, I need to clarify two concepts. First, Tachyons run faster than the speed of light. Second, during the process of movement, Tachyons continuously release energy to the outside, and at the same time, their running speed will become higher and higher. Is it understandable? After receiving a positive answer, LV Yongchang organized his words and said again, according to the current experimental data, the way Tachyons release energy is to release gamma rays to the outside, and the running speed of gamma rays is the speed of light. This creates a phenomenon. The gamma rays it releases can't catch up with it. LV Yongchang rubbed his hands excitedly, and his speech speed also increased some. Imagine a tachyon, while releasing gamma rays, passing in front of your eyes. It's too fast, so you can't observe it at first. You can only observe it when the gamma rays it releases pass by you. This leads to an interesting observation phenomenon. 2. Gamma rays running in opposite directions. 1. Gamma ray is chasing the direction of the tachyon, and the other is the gamma ray released by you before. The two directions are opposite. At the same time, due to the Doppler effect, these two gamma rays will show obvious red shift and blue shift. P.S. Thanks to the great certification of Lu Yilayang of Yonghengsan Village. Chapter 670. Voices from the Pastoral Era. As LV Yongchang finished speaking, several researchers quickly turned their attention to the two sets of abnormal data in the holographic projection point. Sure enough, as LV Yongchang said, compared with other normal gamma rays, the two sets of gamma rays showed strong red shift and blue shift respectively. Tachyons actually exist. Fang Zhu's eyes widened, looking at the various data in front of him in disbelief. LV Yongchang raised his hand happily and patted Fang Zhu on the back. What do you think, old Fang? Am I right? Fang Zhu, who was still in extreme shock, nodded in a daze and whispered softly, no, that's right. But how should we control it to transmit information? Fang Zhu seemed to have thought of something, frowned slightly, and raised a crucial question. So far, we haven't even observed the particle itself, but only found traces left by its movement. Want to use it to transmit information. This is too difficult. The smile on LV Yongchang's face gradually dissipated, and he frowned. Yes, his eyes moved slightly. So, what we have to do now is to reduce the speed of the tachyons as much as possible, and find ways to observe and control them. Inside LV Yongchang's office point, the hands of the holographic clock, as usual, quietly jumped clockwise, indicating that the long river of time was flowing forward minute by minute. It was late at night. LV Yongchang did not rest, but stood up from his seat and walked slowly to the porthole. His eyes looked through the porthole and cast far away at the planet that was rejuvenating in the distance. The atmosphere in the office was extremely quiet, but his mind was as intense as the world turned upside down. The quantum brain was running fast, thinking about various data in the experiment. Tachyons. LV Yongchang whispered softly, is it really produced by the particle collision experiment? Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, and his originally puzzled eyes suddenly became solemn. At the same time, a strong sense of disbelief was revealed in the depths of his eyes. No way. He calmed down and calmed his emotions. It's just a guess, and it needs data to support it. He turned back to his seat and replanned the next experiment. In order to achieve this goal, the Academy of Sciences conducted countless similar experiments. A large amount of resources were invested in it, and for this reason, the original development plan of the Kepler 452 star system was even delayed. Fortunately, all efforts are effective. Based on the experimental data again and again. the Academy of Sciences preliminarily analyzed the tachyons and also unveiled the mysterious corner of the superluminal universe. The universe is full of tachyons. LV. Yongchang stood next to a holographic projection, pointed at the dense experimental data and calculation formulas on it, and announced this major discovery to everyone in the laboratory with some excitement. Right now, countless tachyons are passing by you and me. Why haven't we observed them? There are two main reasons. First, they have almost dissipated their own energy over a long period of time, and they no longer emit any radiation. Second, their speed is too fast. Under normal circumstances, without curvature technology, the light-speed universe cannot observe the scene of the superluminal universe. Speaking of this, LV Yongchang took a deep breath, as if he was making some psychological preparations. Everyone, based on the information that Hua left us, I have a conjecture. The number of tachyons in the universe is likely to be constant. The moment the voice fell, the quiet laboratory suddenly became noisy. Every academician was discussing something with the people around him. But it is obvious from the expressions of the academicians that almost everyone disagrees with LV Yongchang's point of view. Quiet. LV Yongchang frowned slightly and shouted in a deep voice, "Listen to me first." When the laboratory returned to calm again, he pointed to the experimental data in the holographic projection. Even if we don't use particle collision experiments, we can more or less observe traces of tachyon movement by simply releasing a large amount of energy into the experimental area. What does this mean? It means that tachyons already exist in this universe. Whether it is particle collision or laser beam bombardment, it is nothing more than providing a large amount of energy to it, allowing it to temporarily reduce its running speed and briefly present its running trajectory in front of us. LV Yongchang's tone became intense. Therefore, the universe is full of tachyons. I think everyone should have no objection to this, right? The academicians nodded silently. Well, let me ask another question. Where do they come from? LV Yongchang asked loudly. This Tao Yuda on the side answered tentatively. From the moment the universe was born. Yes. Lu Yongchang nodded. So, I thought of some information revealed by the painting at the beginning of the universe. It was the pastoral era they talked about. 11-dimensional space-time, and tachyons may be the legacy of that era. After a long time, all the tachyons have exhausted their energy, and like ghosts, they travel around in the vast universe. The academicians looked at each other. Obviously, they were shocked by LV Yongchang's bold conjecture. I focused on the gamma rays released by the tachyons in each experiment. LV Yongchang continued. Based on the study of gamma rays, I discovered some properties of tachyons. It's amazing that it also has wave-particle duality. I even used this to reverse part of its frequency, and, after processing, I adjusted it to the range that the human ear can hear. Before everyone in the laboratory reacted, LV Yongchang's fingers moved slightly. An audio clip came out of the speaker. This is the sound from the pastoral era of the universe. LV Yongchang said softly. It is also the last reverberation left by the pastoral era. The voice was low and melodious. An inexplicable sense of sadness rose from everyone's heart. It's like Fang Zhu's expression gradually dimmed. It's like a dying person's last cry. LV Yongchang nodded gently. If the 11-dimensional space-time and the superluminal universe are compared to a newborn, the current 3-dimensional universe and the light-speed universe are indeed like an old man in his twilight years. As he said, he stretched out his hand and stopped the audio. Let's get back to the point. All the above discoveries mean one thing. We can modulate the tachyon waves generated by tachyons just like modulating electromagnetic waves, and use them to transmit information. Chapter 671 Basic metal resources are in short supply. Lu Yongchang's various discoveries have brought breakthroughs to the study of tachyon communication. But at the same time, a warning message appeared in the squadron far away from the main fleet of the People's Alliance. Planetary Resources Exploration and Mining Division. Affiliated to the Academy of Sciences as the name suggests. The task they are responsible for is the exploration and exploitation of planetary resources, the planetary mineral resources. Administration, where Hope and Hansand previously worked, is also within the jurisdiction of this department. Academician Wang Man is the main person in charge of this department. As usual, he came to the office and dealt with various problems in planetary mineral exploration and mining with these. After 0 layers of screening, what was placed in front of him were basically higher level events, but those are just some questions about resource extraction and exploration. For today's human civilization, mining resources on ordinary planets is already an extremely easy and convenient matter. Therefore, most of the time, his job does not face much difficulty. For example, there is a warning message glowing red. Wang Man glanced at the warning message casually. The remaining basic metal resources of the People's United Fleet are less than 10%, after being stunned for less than a second. He suddenly shuddered. Fuck, what the hell is this? Wang Man, who was frightened by this message, subconsciously put his hands on the table. Click. Ouch. Wang Man rubbed his waist with a painful look on his face. Having just gotten used to the artificial gravity on the earth, he subconsciously ignored the electromagnetic absorption device on the old starship. But his attention was still focused on the red warning message in front of him. Didn't there still be 60% of the inventory some time ago? Wang Man quickly checked the expenditure records of the fleet's mineral resources with the help of his permission rights. The mineral mining and smelting projects have not stopped, so why did they run out so quickly? After a few minutes, Wang Man raised his head with a bitter look on his face and leaned heavily on the chair behind him. Damn, they are all big consumers of basic metal resources. He sighed feebly. In the expenditure records, the uses of various basic metal resources are clearly written. Kepler 452b Circumplanetary Climate Control Satellite Network Construction Project. Dyson Cloud, Antimatter Preparation Base Expansion Project. Solid Planetary Surface Resource Extraction Project. These are minor issues. The largest resource consuming projects are in the megastructure engineering and Starship factories. It is understandable for the Starship factory. After all, most starships are too old. If they want to maintain the combat power of the fleet, the replacement of starships is the first major priority point. But the megastructure project team, he was puzzled. At this juncture, what megastructural project is more important than other projects? Isn't this causing trouble for him? Once basic metal resources fail to make ends meet, he, the head of the Planetary Resources Exploration and Mining Department, will be the first to be held accountable. Thinking of this, he quickly issued an order to 0, help me contact Academician Tang Herring immediately. Kepler 452b outside geostationary orbit. Academician Tang Herring, after successfully completing the Dyson Sphere project, became the dedicated person in charge of the People's Federation megastructure project. He stood in the office, looking through the portholes from a distance to observe the movements of the engineering ships in synchronous orbit. It's really like an ant. He sighed softly. In front of real planets, our starship is still so insignificant, but such a small starship can play with a planet. Behind him, the office door opened, and a familiar voice came from outside the door. Okay, Academician Tang, don't stay here. I'm sad for spring and sad for autumn. Mingyuan, how can this be sad for spring and autumn? Tang Herring turned around and looked at the visitor with a faint smile on his lips. I'm just sighing. When will our megastructure project be able to build the same? It would be nice if the planets were the same size. Wang Mingyuan pursed his lips towards the porthole on the other side. Well, isn't there one? Have you forgotten about the Dyson Sphere project? Tang Herring smiled bitterly and shook his head. Dyson Sphere? It's still far away. We haven't even successfully launched the second phase of the Dyson Ring project, let alone the third phase of the Dyson Sphere. You should know what I'm talking about is. Okay, Academician Tang, business is important. Let's talk about these gossips later. Wang Mingyuan interrupted Tang Herring. You should know the person in charge of the Planetary Resources Exploration and Mining Department, right? Tang Herring was stunned for a moment, then nodded and admitted. You mean that old boy Wang Man? We know him. Of course he does. Wang Mingyuan shrugged. That's good. Now they're here to investigate. His words made Tang Herring stunned for a while, asking, about the crime? What crime? Tang Herring asked curiously. I heard it's a matter of scheduling and usage of basic metal resources. Wang Mingyuan responded helplessly. Hey, that old boy Wang Man. Tang Herring's eyebrows instantly stood up. Is it bothering him if I use some resources here? Ahem. Academician Tang, are you sure it's some resources? As he spoke, Wang Mingyuan glanced at the engineering blueprint and the holographic projection and asked weakly point Tang Herring, if you don't speak, no one will think you are dumb. Go and do your business. I'll take care of Wang Man's side. Okay. Wang Mingyuan shrugged, turned and left the office. Aha. As the door closed again, the office returned to its original tranquility. Academician Tang Herring raised his hand, gently rubbed his painful temples, and said, "Zero, help me get the communication in." Receive. The electronically synthesized sound fell, and a holographic projection automatically unfolded in front of him. I said, "Leo Tang, you are not very kind in what you do." What time is it now? The fleet has just arrived in the new star system, and everything is in a state of exhaustion. You're a person engaged in megastructure projects. Why are you joining in the fun at this juncture? I've already seen it in the entire fleet, except for the Starship Factory. You use the most basic metals. Before I saw the person, I heard his voice first point before the projection screen was fully unfolded. Wang Man's strong complaints could already be heard from the loudspeaker at the beginning. Tang Herring still had a bit of a smile on his face. After all, the two of them were old friends. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, and he was preparing to have a good chat with them. As a result, I heard this series of angry curses when I came up. Especially the sentence, "You're a person who is engaged in huge construction projects," directly ignited Tang Herring's anger. Chapter 672 Giant Space Ring Living Station. Hey wait, I said Wang Man. What do you mean, Tang? Herring's face looked a little ugly, and there was a hint of gunpowder in his voice. What do I mean? Wang Man snorted coldly. You should know better than anyone else how much resources your megastructure project consumes. Tell you the truth. Currently, less than 10% of the basic metal resources in the fleet's inventory are left. If this continues, all construction projects will have to stop in a short time. Wang Man's words shocked Tang Herring. What, Tang? Herring exclaimed in surprise. Why is the consumption rate so fast? Seeing Tang Herring's expression, that didn't look fake, the anger on Wang Man's face gradually disappeared. He sighed forcefully, shook his head and explained, the Starship Factory consumes huge amounts of basic metal every day. As you know, all the starships in the fleet are waiting to be updated. You can imagine the speed of this consumption. As he spoke, he raised his head, glanced at Tang Herring's uncertain expression, and said again, in addition, on your side, the consumption of basic metals is second only to the Starship Factory. If the Starship Factory is really shut down due to basic metal inventory problems, I cannot bear this responsibility. Tang Herring frowned and asked Wang Man with confusion, what about your planetary resource exploration and mining project? Is there something wrong? In response to Tang Herring's question, Wang Man rolled his eyes angrily. I said, Leo Tang, are you pretending not to understand, or do you really not understand? Who doesn't need time in mining, sorting, and smelting ore? What's more, even some resource mining and smelting equipment needs to be manufactured on site. We only have so little computing power allocated to us. How can we keep up with such a terrifying rate of resource consumption? As he spoke, Wang Man changed the topic and pointed the finger at Tang Herring again. I said, Leo Tang, what kind of megastructure project you have? Is it important that the fleet can be updated? Or Wang Man winked at Tang Herring and said, I owe you a favor. Okay, there's no way. Tang Herring's expression suddenly changed after hearing this. Old Wang, let alone one favor, even 10 favors. I can't stop this project. You should take advantage of this free time to think about how to quickly mine our resources. Seeing Wang Man's expression that instantly collapsed, Tang Herring smiled bitterly and shook his head. Old Wang, to tell you the truth, Professor Lu personally ordered my project here. The importance is probably not much different from that of Starship modification. What Wang Man couldn't help being surprised and asked in a low voice, "What on earth are you building? Isn't the Dyson Cloud expansion project completed long ago? Is it the second phase of the project, Dyson Ring? Does Professor Lu take such big steps? What a mess." Tang Herring waved his hand angrily, correcting Wang Man's statement. "It's a giant space ring residential station. Space ring habitation station." Wang Man's eyes were full of confusion, and he said word by word, "What is this? Isn't Kepler 452b designated as a residence of human civilization? The surface gravity is 2.03 grams. What should newborns do?" Tang Herring said bluntly, "The new generation that has not yet undergone the coming of age ceremony cannot withstand a gravity environment of Taji. Then, isn't there a space nurturing center?" Wang Man's eyes became even more confused. "The scale is too small, and the small internal space will have a bad impact on the mental health of the new generation." Tang Herring spread his hands. "These are Professor Lu's original words. In order to solve the problem once and for all, we were ordered to design a ring-shaped living station." As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and dragged the holographic projection beside him, calling up a model data. The entire circular habitation station is located in the geostationary orbit of Kepler 452b and is more than 100 kilometers wide. It is equipped with artificial gravity devices and various latest technological products. The habitation station is connected to the ground via 12 giant space elevators. Old Wang, look at how big a project this is. Tang Herring smiled bitterly. "The dosage of all basic metals is calculated strictly, and there is no waste, and, Professor Lu said that, in order to ensure the future development of human civilization, the priority of the Ring Residential Station project is second only to the Starship Replacement project." The office suddenly fell silent. It can be seen from Wang Man's constantly changing expression that his current mood may not be much better. After a long time, a long sigh came from the speaker. "Walao. Tang, what do you think we should do?" Tang Herring was silent for a moment and whispered tentatively, "How about you ask Professor Lu?" Earth pointer. Small manned shuttle that came from afar drew a beautiful arc and docked quietly next to the huge Earth. Identity verification in progress. Identity verification successful. Welcome back, Academician Wang Man. As this line of bright white text appeared in front of Wang Man, a gap slowly opened in the closed port door. The gap was small, but large enough to allow a small shuttle to pass through. Under the control of the onboard computer, the small shuttle smoothly passed through the port gate. Outside the window, there was a directional holographic projection flashing green fluorescence. The shuttle followed the holographic arrow and slowly drove into a small apron. Looking at the familiar scene outside the porthole, Wang Man took a deep breath and calmed his anxious mood. "Academician Wang Man, Professor Lu is waiting for you in the office." Zeros. Electronic synthesized voice sounded inside the shuttle. "Okay, I'll go right away." While speaking, the hatch on the side of the shuttle opened automatically. With the help of the auxiliary device, he carefully got out of the hatch and stepped on the solid deck of Earth. Ding. Electromagnetic absorption has been successfully switched. A slightly stiff electronic prompt sounded in the helmet. Wang Man subconsciously turned his head to look at the slowly closing port gate, and his uneasiness became even stronger. In fact, at the beginning, he rejected Tang Herring's suggestion. After all, there was a problem with the reserves of basic metal resources, and he, who was responsible for the exploration and mining of planetary resources, needed to bear a great responsibility. But seeing the gap getting bigger and bigger, Wang Man, who couldn't think of any solution, could only follow Tang Herring's advice and bite the bullet and return to the Earth. "I hope, Professor Lu, don't be too angry." Following the guidance of the holographic arrow, Wang Man walked on the hard and cold deck, thinking wildly in his mind. Chapter 673. Sir, times have changed. The closed door of the office suddenly opened, revealing the bizarre world inside. Azure holographic projections filled with various data filled the entire office. In the center of the huge holographic projections, a small figure sat on his chair with his head buried. It can be seen from the figure's movements that he seems to be performing some important calculation work. "Academician Wang, take a seat." A familiar voice came from the front, Hey. Wang Man responded quickly and carefully squeezed into this world full of formulas and data point. Even though he was extremely careful, he still inevitably came into contact with the light of the holographic projection, causing ripples to appear on its surface. Wait for me for a while and let me finish the work at hand, Yongchang said softly. Wang Man felt the long lost gravity and nodded silently. A robotic arm robot fetched a cup of hot tea with ease and gently placed it on the coffee table in front of him. Looking at the mist rising above the tea and then turning to look at the endless starry sky outside the porthole, Wang Man subconsciously sighed deeply. What? Are you discouraged now? As a familiar joking voice sounded, a figure blocked the light of the holographic projection and stood in front of him. Lu. Professor Lu. Wang Man stood up with an awkward look on his face, rubbed his hands, and whispered with embarrassment, Professor, I have failed to live up to your expectations. The corners of Yongchang's mouth raised slightly, with a faint smile, and he waved his hand nonchalantly. What are you talking about? This is not your fault. The megastructure project and the Starship replacement project are being carried out at the same time, which really tests the fleet's material reserves. Wang Man looked slightly moved when he heard this. Professor, what do you mean? Stop one of the projects first. Yongchang glanced at Wang Man with a half smile. Pause? Why pause? Since mining technology can no longer keep up with the rate of resource consumption, let's develop new mining technology. While speaking, Yongchang raised his hand and made a gesture. The dense holographic projections in the office are like spring snow under the sun, instantly turning into light particles and dissolving in the air. Only a blank holographic projection was left floating quietly beside the two of them. Professor? Wang Man looked at Yongchang in front of him with some confusion. New mining technology, planetary exploration and mining have developed to this point, and it can be said that it has reached its extreme. With nanorobots paired with large-scale mining machinery, the efficiency of mineral mining has been extremely exaggerated. I really can't imagine any other way to greatly improve the efficiency of mining. As he said this, Wang Man frowned and shook his head. Open your mind a little more. Yongchang smiled and raised his hand to operate the holographic projection. A familiar planetary image appeared in front of the two of them. This is Kepler 452c. Wang Man, who is engaged in planetary resource mining, recognized the planet immediately. Right, Yongchang's eyes flashed with a faint light, and he said in a deep voice, according to exploration, this is an iron planet. It contains a huge amount of basic metals and rare metals inside. If it can be mined completely in a short period of time, the fleet's resource shortage problem will be greatly alleviated. Professor, I understand everything you said. Wang Man responded in a low voice. Currently, the focus of mining work is on this planet, but too slow. Yongchang directly interrupted Wang Man's words. Open your mind. Yongchang emphasized again. Wang Man frowned and thought carefully. After a few minutes, he smiled bitterly and shook his head. Professor, you'd better say it clearly. I really don't understand what you mean. Yongchang glared at Wang Man angrily. You should be smarter. Mining. Why do we need to dig and mine little by little on the planet? Why does your next excavator need to be an excavator? Wang Man, is this human language? This is not mined on the planet. Where else can it be mined? In space? Wang Man asked half jokingly. Unexpectedly, Yongchang actually nodded in agreement. Academician Wang, you have finally figured it out. Wang Man? Who am I? Where am I? What have I done? At this time, Wang Man's main focus was to be confused. Think about it. How tiring it is to mine on a planet. Digging, mining, transporting. Yongchang's voice was like a devil's whisper, slowly lingering in his ears. Even with nanorobots and giant mining machinery, these steps are very time consuming and laborious. I came up with a simple and crude plan. Why don't we just blow up the planet and skip the tedious steps of excavation, mining and transportation? Wang Man, he couldn't believe his ears for a moment. What is this? If the difficulty cannot be solved, then solve the source of the difficulty. What do you think of my plan? LV Yongchang's devilish whisper continued. Just think about it. The entire iron planet is broken into large or small pieces, and we can even use shipborne laser cannons to carry out smelting steps in space directly. How efficient is this? Wang Man swallowed hard. His emotions were a little incoherent. Teach, Professor. HMM. LV Yongchang glanced at Wang Man. I think your plan is very feasible. I think so too, Wang Man said excitedly with a strong desire in his eyes. He simply imagined the scene described by LV Yongchang and was so excited that he wanted to raise his arms and shout on the spot. Sir, the times have changed. Who uses mining equipment to mine? LV Yongchang was very satisfied with Wang Man's reply point, so he briefly introduced this extremely explosive mining plan to Wang Man. First, with the help of high energy laser weapons and antimatter bombs, the iron planet was completely detonated. Then, in order to prevent the planetary debris from flying around and disrupting the movement of other celestial bodies in the star system, a large number of gravitational shield generation devices are used to generate a reverse gravitational shield to trap these fragments within a fixed range point. After simple sorting, the reverse gravitational shield and high energy laser beam are directly used to place the smelting and smelting work in space. In this way, not only the mining efficiency is greatly increased, but also the smelting efficiency is greatly improved. However, the most difficult point at present is how to make a weapon powerful enough to detonate a not small iron planet. Chapter 674 Star Destroyer Suzaku. 1 month later, Wang Man anxiously looked at the red warning sign and the holographic projection point. Although the allocation of computing power has been adjusted to 0 and more computing power invested in mineral mining and smelting as much as possible, it still cannot change the situation that the fleet's basic metal resources cannot make ends meet. While starship factories and megastructure projects are slowing down as much as possible, the fleet's base metal resource reserves are still falling toward the lowest warning line. Drop. A crisp tone came from the speaker, breaking the silent atmosphere in the office. Academician Wang Man, there is a message from the starship factory. Special order manufacturing progress. The Star Destroyer, Suzaku, has been assembled and is undergoing factory inspection. Okay. After hearing the news, the depression on Wang Man's face disappeared instantly, replaced by a smile full of hope and relief. He untied the electromagnetic absorption device, stood up and walked around the office several times. Then, he reached out and opened a document in the holographic projection and checked it carefully again. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he said in a deep voice, 0. Help me contact Professor Liu. Suzaku is about to be completed, and the fleet is ready to mine. Receive. After the electronic synthesizer sounded, Wang Man opened the information about the Star Destroyer, Suzaku, with some excitement. Looking at the gorgeous fiery red lines, there was a hint of intoxication in his eyes. In the case of severe shortage of basic metal resources, in order not to affect the progress of other projects, most of the manufacturing raw materials of Suzaku come from the remanufacturing of old starships, but this does not affect the domineering and arrogant appearance of Suzaku. Likewise, it does not affect the structural strength of Suzaku itself. Just like its name, the Star Destroyer, Suzaku, is like a big bird flying high, with an aura of nobility all over its body. There was a faint aura of destruction and violence in the huge gun barrel that penetrated most of the ship's body. Similar to the battering ram, the Star Destroyer Suzaku also has one main gun. Moreover, this main gun also occupies most of the space of the ship body. Of course, there is a big difference between the two. The instantaneous output power of the former is far inferior to that of the latter. In the simplest terms, the Star Destroyer cannon can be reused, while the battering ram is a disposable weapon. In addition, the Star Destroyer, Suzaku, is equipped with a large number of defense modules and high-power warp engines according to the design of the academicians of the Academy of Sciences. In peacetime, the main function of Suzaku is mining, but in wartime, especially for those civilizations that stick to the planet, Suzaku will be an extremely lethal weapon. Of course, the basic method of both is the same, which is to detonate the planet, bite the crisp message tone sounded again, interrupting Wang Man's thoughts. He glanced over his shoulder. It's information from Professor Lu. There were only 2 words in the message. Approve. The time to take action on Kepler 450-c is set in half a month. On the one hand, the Star Destroyer, Suzaku, still needs to undergo several factory inspections. On the other hand, the fleet needs to deploy some of the updated Planet-class starships to cooperate with this unprecedented mining project. These require a lot of time to prepare. Time flies under Zero's control. The newly launched planetary class, Golden Crow, battleships, and Teoti, material reserve ships slowly left the fleet and were driven by antimatter engines to the vicinity of Kepler 450-c. This poor iron planet does not know what is about to happen. It is still quietly orbiting the central star as it has been for billions of years, and around it, the Golden Crow battleships are ready to go, just waiting for an order. A cage built by gravity can be generated to tightly bind it inside. Wang Man sat quietly on the chair in the office, looking at the small grey planet outside the porthole window. The sound of the office door opening came from behind. Old Wang, hearing this familiar voice, Wang Man showed a faint smile. Liu Tang, you are here too. Nonsense. Tang Herring sat down on the chair next to Wang Man and said angrily, can I let such a spectacular scene go? As he spoke, he turned around and looked around, then lowered his voice slightly and asked, Lu, isn't Professor Lu here? Wang Man stared at the grey planet in the distance and nodded slightly. Yes, I heard that Tachyon communication technology is about to achieve a breakthrough. Professor Lu is leading people on the Earth to conquer this technology. Hiss. Tang Herring took a slight breath and exclaimed with a look of horror on his face. So fast? How long has it been? It's not that short. Wang Man shrugged. At least, for Professor Lu, Tachyon communication technology takes a long time. The corners of Tang Herring's mouth twitched, revealing a wry smile. He shook his head and sighed helplessly. That's right. Under normal circumstances, this amount of time would have been enough for Professor Lu to come up with 2 research results, but now he has not solved even one. This Tachyon communication technology is really difficult. Oh, by the way, you are wrong about that. Wang Man shrugged and corrected softly. The Suzaku Star Destroyer was created by Professor Lu, so, strictly speaking, he did make a research result. The bitter smile on Tang Herring's face froze instantly. This god, it's just a god. Listening to Tang Herring's repeated exclamations, Wang Man's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a faint smile. Suddenly, the smile on his face gradually froze, and his eyes became sharper. His eyes focused on a point far away outside the porthole. Looking at the looming red, he excitedly untied the electromagnetic absorption device on his seat, stood up and lay down beside the porthole of the starship. Hey, blocking my view. Tang Herring's unhappy voice came from behind. I said, can you hear? It comes. Wang Man's voice was full of excitement. Suzaku is here. Tang Herring's complaints stopped abruptly. A flustered voice came from behind. A few seconds later, Tang Herring also stood by the porthole, holding a corner of the porthole with his hands, and put his head as close to the porthole as possible, looking at the scene in the distance. Ding. Academician. Wang Man. Academician Tang Herring. The first planetary mining project is about to begin. Please pay attention to safety when watching the process. As Zero's electronic synthesized voice sounded behind him, the scene outside the porthole began to gradually change. Chapter 675 Death of Kepler 450-c. Kepler 450-c. The grey iron planet quietly moves in its own orbit. The stellar wind from the main star quietly blows across its atmosphereless surface, blowing up some tiny debris. Gravity drags it, performing the same movement day after day. This movement, it has maintained for billions of years. If there is no external force, it can continue for billions of years around it. Hundreds of huge starships form a standard hollow spherical structure. The antimatter engines at their tails emit a faint light, driving them to maintain their own positions under the reflection of the main star's light. The surface of these starships glows with a shiny metallic luster. Obviously, they are all freshly baked new guys. Suddenly, the light of the antimatter engines at the tails of these hundreds of starships gradually brightened. From The surface of Kepler 452c. It seems that hundreds of extremely bright suns have appeared in the silent night sky in an instant. The gravitational field generation device starts to operate. Under zero's precise calculation, the joint gravitational shield constructed by hundreds of Golden Crow battleships is slowly taking shape. Unlike the gravitational shield around the starship, this gravitational shield is facing the opposite direction. It is to prevent attacks from the inside. As the strength of the gravitational shield gradually increased, a huge red and black starship slowly came from a distance and filled the last vacant position on the gravitational shield. It's started. Wang Man glanced at the data in the holographic projection beside him, and his expression suddenly became excited. The gravitational shield has been built, and the next step is to launch the Star Destroyer. The moment the voice fell, the muzzle of the Suzaku Star Destroyer began to emit a faint purple light. As the energy gradually gathered, the purple light at the muzzle of the Star Destroyer also began to become stronger gradually. The purple light overshadowed the light emitted by the antimatter engine at the tail of the starship, and also overshadowed the light emitted by the distant star. Purple became the only visible color on the surface of Kepler 452c. Boom. When the purple light reached its peak, a thick laser beam emerged from the muzzle and shot straight at the gray planet in front. 10 seconds later, the high energy laser beam crossed a long distance and hit the surface of the gray planet. The high temperature instantly melted its ground. Blowing up a planet is not something that can be done by simply placing some explosives. Even a super large nuclear bomb or an antimatter bomb can only blow a small hole on the surface of a huge planet. No matter how strong the fortress is, there will be defects inside it. Therefore, the first thing the Star Destroyer has to do is to open a channel to the core of the planet. High energy laser weapons are definitely the best choice. Whether it is an iron planet or a rocky planet, it is impossible to block the ridiculously high temperature of the high energy laser beam. Under the action of the laser beam, the metal that makes up Kepler 452c has long been melted into hot molten iron. They flow freely on the surface of the gray planet, and then slowly solidify into gray scars, like the last tears of the planet. The purple high energy laser beam continued to drill deep into the Earth's core. The high temperature activated the core of Kepler 452c, which had solidified for who knows how many billions of years. A violent earthquake came from the ground, and the surface, which had become somewhat smooth under the polishing of the stellar wind, began to show deep and bottomless gullies. Ding. A crisp prompt sound rang in the air. The logo on the holographic projection made Wang Man and Tang Herring subconsciously hold their breath. It's connected. The high energy laser beam successfully penetrated the ground of Kepler 452c. Thus, the Star Destroyer entered the second form. The power of the purple laser column began to decay next. It only needed to maintain the existence of this channel. An antimatter bomb wrapped in layers was fired from the muzzle and fell directly into the deep core of Kepler 452c along the muzzle of the laser column. During the fall, the heat-resistant armor on the outer periphery of the antimatter bomb continued to melt under the action of the laser beam. Finally, when the antimatter bomb reached the center of the Earth, the outer heat-resistant armor fell off completely. Bang. The bomb was detonated. The antimatter contained in it immediately touched the extremely dense planetary core material on the periphery. Annihilation reaction followed. The tremendous energy generated by the annihilation of positive and antimatter turned the newly activated core into a powerful bomb. As the purple laser beam slowly extinguished, the flames of the explosion flashed deep in the core. Countless bottomless cracks appeared on the surface of Kepler 452c in an instant. The next moment, the spherical planet broke into pieces, accompanied by boiling hot molten iron, and turned into countless debris under the impact of the antimatter bomb. These large and small fragments quickly overcame their own gravity and shot in all directions. The effect of the gravitational shield began to appear. Rather than calling it a gravitational shield, it is better to call it a gravitational cage. Under the influence of the gravity cage, the speed of these flying planet fragments slowly slowed down, and they stopped one by one in the cold and silent space. In just a few dozen minutes, a complete planet turned into a dense cluster of asteroids. The red-hot molten iron connected and bridged the asteroids, forming an extremely magnificent picture. Oh my god, damn. This thing is really cool. Wang Man and Tang Herring said at the same time, point looking at the asteroid cluster whose running state is gradually stabilizing under the action of the gravitational field. Tang Herring glanced at Wang Man beside him. I say, old Wang, what are you still standing there for? It's your turn to do it. Oh, right. Wang Man suddenly came back to his senses, raised his hand and patted his head lightly. Attention, all units, start the splitting and smelting work immediately. He gave the order without any hesitation. As soon as the voice fell, the joint gravitational field generated by the Golden Crow battleship began to split, and each gravitational field pulled the clusters of planetary fragments and scattered in all directions. This is the splitting work point. As for smelting, it's even simpler. Narrow the range of the gravitational cage. Use the gravitational cage as a smelting furnace and use a bunch of high energy lasers to directly heat it. Point the heat transfer effect in space is extremely poor, and there are no extra impurities. This is simply a perfect place for ore smelting. For a moment, in the originally empty and cold space, there appeared groups of hot molten iron with red light. After the smelting was completed, the TOT material storage ship waiting on the side quickly followed up, took the molten iron into its belly, and began cooling and shaping in a high purity vacuum environment. Point looking at the growing string of data on the holographic projection, Tang Herring glanced at Wang Man again. I say, Leo Wang, you can't stop me from using basic metal resources now, right? No. Wang Man's face was full of smiles. It's all open to use. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.